Chapter 700. The Wind Ghost was the only creature that could survive in the wind plains, and their residences were usually built underground. This was because only underground could protect them from the gales. Although the Wind Ghost clan did not fear the gales of the wind plains, it was clearly impossible for them to build their residences above ground. This was because the gales of the wind plains would instantly tear them to shreds. As a result, the Wind Ghost village was basically built underground. There were underground tunnels and cave-like rooms. This was how the Wind Ghost's residences were constructed. At this moment, in the Wind Ghost village, the St. Blood Wind Ghost was furious because of the large-scale invasion of humans. Many people felt that the wind plains was much less dangerous after the Wind Ghost attack had been repelled. As a result, many people formed groups and entered the wind plains to train. After this great defeat, the Wind Ghost clan did indeed need some time to settle down. However, the anger in its heart made the Sacred Blood Wind Ghost decide to attack the humans that had entered the wind plains. As a Sacred Blood Wind Ghost, its status in the Wind Ghost tribe was clearly not low. A trace of killing intent flashed through its eyes as the Sacred Blood Wind Ghost spoke viciously. "Humans, do you think the wind plains is safe right now? This time, I will definitely make all of you humans that have entered the wind plains die here." As it spoke, the Wind Ghost gave the order to attack the human warriors in the wind plains. The Wind Ghosts, who had just finished a great battle, moved out once again. However, compared to the Wind Ghost attack, the number of Wind Ghosts this time was obviously much smaller. However, it was definitely not something that the humans who entered the wind plains could resist. No one had expected that the Wind Ghost group would launch an attack when it was supposed to be the safest time. Moreover, it was led by a Sacred Blood Wind Ghost. Xiao Chen did not know about the Wind Ghost's actions. At this time, Xiao Chen had gradually entered the depths of the wind plains after a few days of traveling. Along the way, Xiao Chen's harvest was also not bad. Along the way, he encountered many treasures of heaven and earth, and even found a stalk of herb of providence. Xiao Chen already knew how precious the Italian herb was. Therefore, Xiao Chen was very happy to be able to obtain 2 Italian herbs. However, the amount of Italian herbs was too small and difficult to encounter. This inevitably made Xiao Chen somewhat disappointed. But according to Xiao Sheng's words, the herb of providence in the outer area was almost extinct. After all, there would be human warriors going to the wind plains for training tomorrow. Who would let go of a treasure like the herb of providence? However, as he continued to go deeper, when he reached the core area of the wind plains, there were few traces of people there. As a result, if Xiao Chen was lucky, he might be able to obtain a great harvest. Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chen's mood improved a little. Xiao Sheng was right. Almost all of the outer regions had been plundered clean by human warriors. However, very few human warriors had entered the core region. There was bound to be something to be gained there. Full of expectations, Xiao Chen rushed towards the core area of the wind plains. As he went deeper, the wind in the wind plains became stronger and stronger. In the end, Xiao Chen had no choice but to use the black armor talisman because the defensive treasures alone were not enough to resist the wind. But fortunately, Xiao Chen had a total of 7 black armor talismans. He was not afraid that the black armor talismans would be used up in a short period of time. Under the protection of the black armor talisman, Xiao Chen was no longer afraid of the wind in the wind plains. As a saint-grade talisman, the black armor talisman was the nemesis of the wind plains. If it were not for the fact that the black armor talisman was extremely difficult to refine and was extremely expensive, the wind plains would not be considered a place of death for human warriors. Thinking about it, even Tang Tianbao, the young master of the Tang family, only had 1 black armor talisman. This showed how precious the black armor talisman was. It was also because of this that many ordinary warriors did not have the ability to obtain a black armor talisman. When they went to the wind plains, they could only rely on some defensive treasures to travel around the periphery of the wind plains. Because of this, the wind plains had always been inaccessible. With the protection of the black armor talisman, Xiao Chen advanced all the way to the depths of the wind plains. However, this peace did not last for too long. One day later, Xiao Chun was attacked by a group of wind ghosts. Over 100 wind ghosts and Xiao Chun collided head-on. These wind ghosts were the lowest level wind ghosts. Their intelligence was almost zero. As soon as they saw Xiao Chun, the group of wind ghosts roared and rushed forward. It had been almost 10 days since Xiao Chun entered the wind plains. This was the first time he had encountered a group of wind ghosts. However, it was only 100 ordinary wind ghosts. This was not much of a threat to Xiao Chun. Unsheathing the ink dragon sword, Xiao Chun easily killed the 100 or so wind ghosts. Ordinary wind ghosts were not very strong. Only when they reached the level of a wind ghost king, a wind ghost saint king, or a saint bloodwind ghost would a wind ghost undergo a qualitative change. Otherwise, ordinary wind ghosts were almost equivalent to stronger wild beasts. After killing the group of wind ghosts, Xiao Chun did not pay too much attention to it. He continued on his way. After all, encountering wind ghosts in the wind plains was a very normal thing. However, what Xiao Chun did not expect was that along the way, Xiao Chun would constantly encounter groups of wind ghosts. The number of wind ghosts varied. The largest group Xiao Chun encountered was a group of 500 wind ghosts. Encountering groups of wind ghosts so frequently, and seeing that these wind ghosts were all rushing towards the outer regions, Xiao Chun began to feel suspicious. After all, logically speaking, after the wind ghost attack, the wind ghosts in the wind plains should be at their quietest. During this period, the wind ghosts would not attack humans. But now, these wind ghosts seemed to have turned out in full force. This made Xiao Chun suspicious. After encountering 5 or 6 groups of wind ghosts in a row, Xiao Chun asked doubtfully, "Old ancestor, the actions of these wind ghosts are a bit strange." Hearing this, Xiao Chun also nodded in agreement. "It is indeed a bit strange. You should be careful. You can deal with small groups of wind ghosts, but if you encounter tens of thousands of wind ghosts, it will be dangerous." Xiao Chun did not care about small groups of wind ghosts, but large groups of wind ghosts were no joke. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Xiao Chun also nodded seriously. Indeed, since he had encountered 5 or 6 groups of wind ghosts in a row, he had to be more careful. Things were a bit strange, and Xiao Chun had to be 120% vigilant. Unfortunately, after intentionally avoiding several groups of wind ghosts, Xiao Chun encountered a wind ghost with sacred blood. This sacred blood wind ghost was acting alone and did not group with the wind ghosts. Xiao Chun and it collided head-on. The two of them looked at each other, and for a moment, both of them recognized each other's identity. The sacred blood wind ghost's face darkened, and it looked at Xiao Chun and shouted coldly, "Human, is that you? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 701. The wind ghost recognized Xiao Chun, and at the same time, Xiao Chun also recognized him. Although he didn't know the name of this sacred blood wind ghost, Xiao Chun knew that in the previous battle, this sacred blood wind ghost had fought fiercely with Lu Tianming. He didn't expect to encounter a sacred blood wind ghost here. Following the sacred blood wind ghost's cold shout, Xiao Chun's killing intent surged. When a human and a wind ghost met, there was naturally nothing to say, only a battle. Sensing the killing intent in Xiao Chun's eyes, the sacred blood wind ghost was not stupid, and its first thought was to escape. What a joke! Xiao Chun had fought Wu Qi, and Wu Qi was a direct descendant of the sacred blood wind ghost, who was extremely powerful. If Xiao Chun could fight Wu Qi, then it was obviously not a match for him. The sacred blood wind ghost's intelligence was not lower than a human's, so it didn't hesitate and immediately chose to escape. Seeing this, Xiao Chun hurriedly said, "Boy, kill it. The sacred blood wind ghost has a lot of good things on it." The wind ghost corpse was indeed very valuable, which was why the ancient sacred sect always bought wind ghost corpses. In the previous battle, Wu Qi's corpse had also been taken away by the ancient sacred sect. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Xiao Chun naturally didn't have any doubts. Since Xiao Chun said that the sacred blood wind ghost corpse would greatly benefit him, then Xiao Chun naturally wouldn't let it leave. Moreover, After taking the marrow-cleansing saint pill, his cultivation had broken through from the initial stage of the Tao validation realm to the minor stage of the Tao validation realm, and his strength had increased a lot. As such, Xiao Chun naturally had more confidence in killing the sacred bloodwind ghost. Unsheathing the ink dragon sword, Xiao Chun directly used the ferocious tiger stampede. Taking a step, Xiao Chun instantly caught up to the sacred bloodwind ghost. Originally, the sacred bloodwind ghost didn't plan to fight Xiao Chun, but now that Xiao Chun was blocking its path, its face sank, and its bloodline power immediately burned as it clawed at Xiao Chun. Without any superfluous words, the two immediately engaged in battle. However, the sacred bloodwind ghost fighting Xiao Chun, clearly, it didn't have the chance to fight to the death, and was constantly looking for an opportunity to escape. Xiao Chun had long seen that the sacred bloodwind ghost wanted to escape, so how could he let it do as it wished? He firmly entangled it, and the ink dragon sword in his hand constantly slashed out, and the sound of metal colliding constantly rang out. Obviously, the sacred bloodwind ghost didn't want to let him go. Being entangled by Xiao Chun, the sacred bloodwind ghost's face became increasingly gloomy. After another head-on collision with Xiao Chun, the sacred bloodwind ghost coldly shouted, "Human, don't push your luck." In the sacred bloodwind ghost's opinion, it originally didn't want to fight to the death with Xiao Chun, but Xiao Chun kept pestering it, so even a clay figurine would have some temper. However, facing the sacred bloodwind ghost's cold shout, Xiao Chun replied without batting an eyelid. "Push my luck? What a joke. Die." Whether it was a human killing a wind ghost or a wind ghost killing a human, it was a matter of course. Moreover, Xiao Sheng also said that the sacred bloodwind ghost would greatly benefit him. Therefore, Xiao Chun was even more merciless. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Chen's body shone with golden light. The tempered battle body had been pushed to the extreme. With the help of the marrow-cleansing saint elixir, Xiao Chen's tempered battle body had also been improved. It had vaguely reached the limit of the first layer of the golden armor realm. The improvement of the tempered battle body gave Xiao Chun the confidence to take the sacred bloodwind ghost's attacks head-on. Under the golden light, Xiao Chun and the sacred bloodwind ghost fought fiercely. The more they fought, the more frightened the sacred bloodwind ghost became. Xiao Chen's strength was too great. Not only was he not weaker than it, he was even slightly stronger. In a face-to-face confrontation, with the power of the tempered battle body, Xiao Chun gradually gained the upper hand. In terms of strength, he had already suppressed the sacred bloodwind ghost. In this way, with the powerful attacks of the ink dragon sword in his hand, Xiao Chun gradually gained the upper hand in the battle. Using the square sky sword shadows filled the sky, and the sacred bloodwind ghost struggled to deal with them. On his green skin, there were deep wounds that revealed his bones. Fresh blood was flowing out from the wounds. As the battle continued, the sacred bloodwind ghost felt that death was approaching it more and more. It wanted to escape, but unfortunately, Xiao Chun did not give it the slightest chance. It knew that if this continued, it would be killed by Xiao Chun sooner or later. In fact, before the battle began, the sacred bloodwind ghost had already admitted that it was no match for Xiao Chun, and now it seemed that this was indeed the case. As its injuries worsened, Xiao Chen's attacks became fiercer and fiercer, and its stamina gradually ran out. At the last moment, the sacred bloodwind ghost begged for mercy. "Human, there is no great enmity between us. Let me go. I am a sacred bloodwind ghost. If you kill me, my father will not let you go. In the wind plains, do you want to provoke the pursuit of a wind ghost king? Let me go, and I promise that I will not pursue today's matter." The sacred blood wind ghost father was a wind ghost king, but their ancestor was a wind ghost saint king. Hearing its words, Xiao Chun ignored it. "What a joke. Let it go. How could that be possible?" At this point, how could Xiao Chun stop if he did not kill the sacred blood wind ghost? As for its father, Xiao Chun was not a match for a wind ghost king, but he was not present at the moment. His attacks did not weaken in the slightest. Seeing that its words had no effect at all, and Xiao Chen's killing intent did not decrease in the slightest, the sacred blood wind ghost's face was already filled with despair. It could no longer tangle with Xiao Chun. With a slash of his sword, Xiao Chun successfully sent one of the sacred blood wind ghost's arms flying. The intense pain made the sacred blood wind ghost shriek. As the sacred blood wind ghost shrieked, Xiao Chun successfully grasped the opportunity. He pointed a finger and directly used the Ganjiang finger sword. A blood-red sword light flashed, and under the terrified gaze of the wind ghost, the blood-red sword light pierced through its forehead like lightning. A finger-sized bloody hole pierced through the sacred blood wind ghost's forehead. Blood slowly flowed out from it, and the light in its eyes quickly faded. Its vitality also quickly disappeared. With a bang, the sacred blood wind ghost's body fell backwards. He had finally succeeded in killing the sacred blood wind ghost. This was also the first sacred blood wind ghost that Xiao Chun had killed. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Xiao Chun walked up to the sacred blood wind ghost's corpse with the ink dragon sword in hand and asked curiously, "Ancestor, what benefits does this guy's corpse bring?" Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 702. After finally killing the Saint Bloodwind ghost, Xiao Chun naturally couldn't wait to find out what benefits the Saint Bloodwind ghost would bring. After all, Xiao Chun had expended a lot of effort to kill the Saint Bloodwind ghost. Faced with Xiao Chun's question, Xiao Chun didn't keep him in suspense this time and spoke indifferently. The wind ghost body contains something called the wind soul, and the wind soul is the main ingredient to refine the origin wind pill. He patiently explained to Xiao Chun. First, the wind soul. To put it bluntly, the wind soul was the soul of the wind ghost. As for the origin wind pill, it was actually a very special pill that could only be refined with the wind soul. Its main function was to temper the body and meridians. In fact, tens of millions of years ago, the human ancestors began to notice that although the gale in the wind plane was extremely dangerous, it also had great benefits for human ancient martial art practitioners, and that was to temper the physical body and meridians. However, everyone knew that the gales in the wind plane were too powerful and couldn't temper the body at all. This was because even a saint wouldn't be able to last long in the wind plane without any protection. There were clearly such great benefits, but they couldn't make use of it because it was too powerful. This made the human ancestors rather unwilling to accept. It was precisely because of this unwillingness that the human ancestors began to research. As the only creature that could survive in the wind plane, the wind ghost naturally became the most important subject of research. Under the painstaking research of countless outstanding alchemists, the origin wind pill was finally born. Using the wind ghost's wind soul in addition to some other natural treasures, the origin wind pill could be refined. Because the origin wind pill was mainly refined with a fragment of the wind ghost soul, it had a very good effect on tempering the body of a cultivator. Moreover, the higher the grade of the wind soul used, the more obvious the effects of the origin wind pill would be. For example, if the Saint Bloodwind ghost soul was refined into the origin wind pill, the effects would definitely be of great benefit to Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun honestly told Xiao Chun about the wind soul and the origin wind pill. Hearing this, Xiao Chun naturally couldn't help but feel excited. However, in the end, Xiao Chun said somewhat unhappily, "Ancestor, since the wind soul is so good, why didn't you tell me earlier? I killed so many wind ghosts on the way here. If I took their souls, then..." Xiao Chun complained that Xiao Sheng didn't tell him earlier. However, before Xiao Chun could finish his words, Xiao Sheng unhappily said, "Boy, what's so pitiful about those ordinary wind ghosts' wind souls? Even if they were refined into the origin wind pill, they would be nothing but trash." The reason why Xiao Sheng didn't mention it before was clearly because he didn't care about the wind souls of the ordinary wind ghosts. Using such wind souls to refine the elemental wind pill was, in Xiao Sheng's opinion, a complete waste of heavenly treasures. Facing Xiao Sheng's answer, Xiao Chun was speechless. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. "You don't care, but I do." Truly, a man with a full stomach doesn't know the hunger of a starving man. Xiao Shang's standards were very high, but Xiao Chun was different. Even a mosquito's leg was meat. After hearing Xiao Shang's introduction of the Origin Wind Pill, Xiao Chun felt that if he had enough Origin Wind Pills, then breaking through to the second layer of the Temper Battle Body was not impossible. Just think about it. The first layer of the Temper Battle Body was already so terrifying. It was obvious that it would be of great help to Xiao Chun. If he could break through to the second layer of the Tempered Battle Body, then how powerful would Xiao Chen's physical strength be? Xiao Chun felt somewhat unhappy, but there was nothing he could do. According to the method taught by Xiao Shang, he quickly collected the Sacred Blood Wind Ghost's Wind Soul. Using some special methods, the Sacred Blood Wind Ghost's Wind Soul turned into a round bead in Xiao Chen's hand. It was about the size of a fist. After putting it into his storage ring, Xiao Chun continued on his journey. He still couldn't refine the Origin Wind Pill. After all, Xiao Chun didn't have the other heavenly treasures on him. However, according to Xiao Shang, the key to refining the Origin Wind Pill was the Wind Soul. As for the other supplementary ingredients, they weren't anything rare. As long as he left the Wind Plains, he could find any medicine shop and buy them. Speaking of the other supplementary ingredients, Xiao Chun suddenly remembered the pill formula for the Origin Wind Pill. Xiao Shang knew that Xiao Chun was an alchemist. Although his cultivation level wasn't high, it was more than enough for him to refine the Origin Wind Pill. However, Xiao Chun suddenly realized that he didn't know the pill formula for the Origin Wind Pill. Ancestor, if I don't know the pill formula for the Origin Wind Pill, how do I refine it? It was naturally best to refine the Origin Wind Pill by himself. If he asked other alchemists to help him refine the pill, then after the pill was refined, the other party would take a commission. And this commission wasn't low. Generally, it was 30%, and some could even go up to 50%. In other words, if the Sacred Blood Wind Ghost Wind Soul could be used to refine 2 Origin Wind Pills, then after the pill was refined, the alchemist would take one of the pills. With such a high commission, Xiao Chun naturally wasn't willing to give it to others for free. Moreover, Xiao Chun himself was an alchemist. Although Xiao Chen's focus had always been on martial cultivation, since he had this skill, why would he give it to others for free? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Shang was speechless. He smiled and said, "You really are stupid. Since this ancestor said such words, then I naturally know the pill formula for the Origin Wind Pill." Xiao Shang wasn't an alchemist, but he did know the pill formula for the Origin Wind Pill. Hearing this, Xiao Chun let out a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "So that's how it is. So that's how it is." Since he had the pill formula, then it was easy to handle. The matter of the Origin Wind Pill could only be put aside for the time being. In a wind plane, there was no condition to refine the pill. In the next few days, Xiao Chun went all the way to the depths of the wind plane. As he went deeper and deeper into the wind plane, the surrounding wind became stronger and stronger. Fortunately, Xiao Chun had enough black armor talismans on him, so he wasn't afraid of the wind's attack. He had already completely entered the core area of the wind plane. According to Xiao Shang, he wasn't far from the heavenly spiritual pool. Soon, he would reach the heavenly spiritual pool. However, at this moment, in a wind ghost tribe in the wind plane, a tall and burly wind ghost king with dark skin cursed angrily with a face full of killing intent. "Human, lowly human, you actually dared to kill this king's son. If this king doesn't tear you to pieces, this king will not rest." As he spoke, a terrifying pressure suddenly erupted from the wind ghost king's body. For a moment, the wind ghost tribe and the wind ghost tribe all prostrated themselves on the ground in fear. This wind ghost king was obviously extremely angry. He was the father of the sacred blood wind ghost that Xiao Chun had killed. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 703. It was easy to imagine how furious the Wind Ghost King would be when its son was killed. Furthermore, it had basically confirmed that the killer was Xiao Chun through the information sent back by many Wind Ghost Kings. After all, Xiao Chun had encountered many wind ghosts on his way. Based on Xiao Chun's tracks, the only person who could possibly kill the saint-blooded wind ghost was him. After all, very few human cultivators would enter the core of the Wind Plains. Xiao Chun was the only one. The Wind Ghost King was neither unfamiliar with Xiao Chun nor familiar with him. Due to Xiao Chen's astonishing performance in the battle outside Wind Suppression City, he had indeed attracted the attention of many Wind Ghost Saint Rulers and Wind Ghost Kings. He was a young genius of the human race. After confirming the killer of its son, the Wind Ghost King's furious voice rang through the entire tribe of Wind Ghosts underground. Search, find that human even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Under the furious roar of the Wind Ghost King, countless wind ghosts swarmed out and began to search for Xiao Chun. While these wind ghosts were searching for Xiao Chun had already approached the Heaven's Soul Pool. Xiao Chun clearly had no idea that he was being pursued by a Wind Ghost King. He had already entered the core of the Wind Plains. In front of Xiao Chun, a bottomless crack had suddenly appeared in the barren wind plains that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was as if someone had slashed it open with a sword. In the wind plains, the crack extended for tens of thousands of kilometers. It was pitch black below, and it was impossible to see what was inside. Standing at the edge of the crack, Xiao Chun looked at the crack in front of him with a grave expression. Xiao Sheng had already confirmed that the Heaven's Soul Pool was within the crack, because Xiao Sheng had already sensed the aura of the Heaven's Soul Pool. Phew, it's time to go all out. Xiao Chun let out a sigh of relief and eventually jumped into the crack of the abyss. The Heaven's Soul Pool was one of the necessary conditions for Xiao Sheng's resurrection. Most importantly, without the Heaven's Soul Pool, Xiao Sheng's remnant soul would not be able to hold on for long, let alone be resurrected. It would dissipate very quickly. In order to resurrect Xiao Sheng, Xiao Chun chose to go all out. He jumped in the crack and fell rapidly. Previously, Xiao Sheng had told Xiao Chun that there was a power of law in the crack, and this power of law prohibited cultivators from flying. Therefore, it was obviously unrealistic to rely on flying to reach the bottom of the crack. It was also because of this reason that Xiao Chun hesitated for a long time. After all, if he could not fly, it meant that Xiao Chun could only fall to the bottom of the cliff like an ordinary person. He did not know how deep the crack was. Although he was a cultivator, he would still be in danger of dying under such an impact. Fortunately, Xiao Chun had the tempered battle body. With the help of the tempered battle body, Xiao Chun's physical strength was far beyond that of an ordinary cultivator. With his tyrannical body, Xiao Chun might be able to withstand the destructive force of the rapid fall. It was also because of Xiao Chun's tempered battle body that Xiao Sheng agreed to let Xiao Chun give it a try. Otherwise, even if Xiao Sheng disappeared from the world, he would never let Xiao Chun do this. The speed of the fall was getting faster and faster. Strong winds constantly blew past Xiao Sheng's body, and the things in front of Xiao Chun's eyes madly streaked past him. After falling rapidly for more than 100 breaths, Xiao Chun finally vaguely saw the bottom of the crack. Almost at the same time, Xiao Sheng's voice rang in Xiao Chun's mind. Boy, now is the time. Use the tempered battle body. Only by relying on the tempered battle body could one withstand such a terrifying force. Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun naturally did not hesitate and immediately used the tempered battle body. The golden light was dazzling, and then there was a loud bang. It was as if a meteor had hit the ground. The earth shook, smoke and dust rose, and a terrifying shock wave roared out along the crack like a wave. In the thick smoke and dust, Xiao Chun's figure could not be seen at all. After about half an hour, the smoke and dust at the bottom of the gale slowly dissipated. At the same time, a deep pit that was enough to make one tremble with fear appeared in sight. The pit was very deep, and it could be said to be bottomless. The surroundings were strangely quiet. Suddenly, an arm stretched out from the pit amidst this extremely quiet environment, and it grabbed the edge of the pit. After that, a young man who was covered in dust and covered in blood climbed out of the pit. The young man was naturally Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun could be said to have walked past the gates of hell from that fall. How should he describe it? It felt as if he had been struck by an almighty Tao Emperor Realm expert. The bones in his entire body were on the verge of falling apart, and his skin and muscles were directly torn apart. Xiao Chun forced himself out of the pit with his last breath, and then he fell unconscious. "Boy, are you all right?" Sensing that Xiao Chen's current situation was very bad, Xiao Sheng asked with concern. However, Xiao Chun, who had fallen unconscious, obviously could not hear him. After not getting a reply from Xiao Chun for a long time, Xiao Sheng personally checked Xiao Chen's body. In the end, after confirming that Xiao Chen's life was not in danger, Xiao Sheng heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Chen's injuries were very serious. This was true, but it was not enough to threaten Xiao Chen's life. After confirming this, Xiao Sheng could not help but sigh. As expected of the number 1 body refining technique, the 100 temper battle body is really shocking. Xiao Chen's survival was entirely due to the 100 tempered battle body. Firstly, the 100 tempered battle body had increased Xiao Chen's physical strength. Secondly, the 100 tempered battle body had also greatly increased Xiao Chen's vitality. Xiao Sheng also praised the 100 tempered battle body, which was known as the strongest body refining technique in the Tiana continent. After confirming that Xiao Chen's life was not in danger, Xiao Sheng secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The next step was to wait for Xiao Chun to wake up. At the bottom of the quiet canyon, Xiao Chun lay there like a dead man, covering his face with his hands. 3 days passed like that before Xiao Chun slowly woke up. Xiao Chun struggled to open his eyes. The sharp pain in his body made him grin and cry out in pain. This was really a desperate situation. If he was not careful, the consequences would be unimaginable. Xiao Chun struggled to sit up. After 3 days, the wounds on his body had basically stopped bleeding. However, the sharp pain in his body was still unbearable for Xiao Chun. Originally, Xiao Chun wanted to check his injuries, but first, he suddenly felt that the black armor talisman he had used before had disappeared. The power of the black armor talisman had been exhausted. In other words, at this time, he did not have the protection of the black armor talisman at all. As a result, the strong wind in the wind plane was enough to tear him to pieces in an instant. Xiao Chen's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly prepared to take out the black armor talisman, but at this time, Xiao Sheng's voice sounded. "Boy, you finally woke up. Please collect, please vote, please recommend." This chapter ends. Chapter 704. The power of the black armor talisman had already been exhausted. Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chen paused. At the same time, Xiao Sheng said with a smile, "Boy, there is no wind at the bottom of the valley. Otherwise, you would have died long ago." Previously, Xiao Chen had been unconscious for 3 days. During these 3 days, Xiao Sheng was extremely puzzled by this canyon crack. It was located in the core area of the wind plane, but there was not a trace of wind in this canyon crack. It was simply too amazing. Logically speaking, the wind that enveloped the entire wind plane should be pervasive, but now, there was not the slightest trace of wind. Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun was also somewhat stunned. Previously, he did not observe carefully. Now, Xiao Chun realized that there was not the slightest trace of wind in this canyon crack. He did not expect that there would be such a place in the wind plane. He did not understand why there was no wind in this canyon crack. However, this was not important. For now, Xiao Chun still needed to quickly heal his injuries and then search for the heavenly spiritual pool. After all, this was the purpose of Xiao Chen's trip. There were few people in the canyon crack, and there was no trace of the wind ghost. This was good news for Xiao Chun. At least he could focus on healing his injuries. After swallowing the healing elixir, Xiao Chun sat cross-legged on the ground. Although his life was not in danger, at this moment, Xiao Chen's body was not in good condition. His injuries were still very serious. With his eyes closed, Xiao Chen spent 2 days recovering from most of his injuries with the help of healing pills. Although he had not fully recovered yet, he was able to move around without any major hindrances. Thus, Xiao Chen did not waste any more time and immediately began to search for the heavenly spiritual pool. According to Xiao Sheng, the heavenly spiritual pool was at the bottom of this canyon crack. Using his secret method, Xiao Sheng could feel the aura of the heavenly spiritual pool and determine its general location. Under Xiao Sheng's guidance, Xiao Chun walked all the way into the depths of the canyon. As he walked, he found that the canyon was extremely deep. After walking for 2 days, they still had not reached the Heavenly Soul Pool. The length of this canyon had completely exceeded Xiao Chen's expectations. Some people even suspected that the canyon crack ran through the entire wind plains. If that was the case, then it would be too exaggerated. One had to know that the wind plains was not small. If it could run through the entire wind plains, then one could imagine the length of the canyon crack. It was as if there was no end to it. However, Xiao Sheng could sense that the aura of the heavenly spiritual pool was getting thicker and thicker, and they were getting closer and closer. Xiao Sheng sensed something. Regarding this, Xiao Chun did not have the slightest doubt. He braced himself and continued walking. Another 2 days passed. For 4 whole days, Xiao Chun and Xiao Chun had been walking slowly and forcefully at the bottom of the canyon. For days had passed, and it was at this time that the unchanging scene before them finally began to change. The originally narrow, desolate, and barren bottom of the canyon crack suddenly presented a completely different scene in front of Xiao Chen's eyes. The cliffs on both sides spread out without any warning. The originally narrow bottom of the valley actually formed a circular valley at the end of the valley. Although the valley was also surrounded by towering cliffs, it gave people a feeling of suddenly opening up. Not only that, but in this circular valley, there were trees and grass everywhere. Such a scene actually appeared in the wind plains, one of the 4 death zones of the Sky River continent. Compared to the barren wind plains, this place could be said to be a paradise. It was hard to imagine that such a place existed in the wind plains. Standing in this circular valley, Xiao Chun was stunned. He couldn't help but murmur, "Boy, this is the heavenly spiritual pond. The heavenly spiritual pond can bring vitality to the earth. Only the heavenly spiritual pond can create such a place in the wind plains." Take a look. Compared to Xiao Chen's shock, Xiao Sheng was much calmer. Following Xiao Sheng's finger, Xiao Chen saw from afar that in the center of the circular valley, a pure and enormous spiritual energy soared into the sky. It seemed to transform into a barrier that enveloped the entire circular valley. Moreover, below this spiritual energy pillar, a milky white liquid was suspended in the air. This liquid was milky white and had a diameter of more than 10 meters. However, it was floating in midair. Xiao Chun had seen a spiritual pond before, but compared to the heavenly spiritual pond in front of him, it was completely dwarfed. The spiritual energy of this heavenly spiritual pond was many times richer than the spiritual pond. Facing Xiao Chen's shock, Xiao Chen's figure slowly floated out of Xiao Chen's body with a faint smile on his face. They had finally found the heavenly spiritual pond. Although the process was very difficult, the heavenly spiritual pond was right in front of them. All the previous hardships were worth it for both Xiao Chun and Xiao Sheng. If Xiao Sheng wanted to revive, he had to use the heavenly spiritual pond. Moreover, Xiao Sheng didn't tell Xiao Chun that this heavenly spiritual pond was also a unique opportunity for Xiao Chun. As Xiao Sheng, he naturally couldn't take this heavenly spiritual pond for himself. From the beginning, he had decided to use this heavenly spiritual pond to give Xiao Chun a great opportunity. Originally, with Xiao Chen's current cultivation, it was impossible for him to refine the pure spiritual energy in the heavenly spiritual pond. However, with Xiao Chen around, he naturally had a way to let Xiao Chen obtain the pure spiritual energy in this heavenly spiritual pond. He only left the energy he needed for his revival and gave the rest to Xiao Chun. He believed that as long as Xiao Chun could obtain the opportunity in this heavenly spiritual pond, his strength would definitely undergo an earth-shattering change. After being stunned for a while, Xiao Chun slowly walked towards the heavenly spiritual pond in the middle of the valley under Xiao Sheng's lead. As they got closer to the heavenly spiritual pond, Xiao Chun felt that even the surrounding air was filled with spiritual energy. Just taking a breath made him feel refreshed. When they arrived in front of the heavenly spiritual pond, Xiao Sheng finally spoke. "Boy, The energy in this heavenly spiritual pond is very large. Later, use the method I'll teach you to refine the energy. Remember, you must do it according to my method. Otherwise, the energy in this heavenly spiritual pond will instantly burst you. Xiaosheng spoke. Hearing this, Xiao Qian's expression froze. He then asked in confusion, Ancestor, isn't this heavenly spiritual pond what you need to revive? If you give me all the energy in it, what will you do? He didn't expect Xiao Sheng to give the energy in the heavenly spiritual pond to him. Although the heavenly spiritual pond was a supreme treasure to Xiao Chun, compared to Xiao Sheng's revival, it wasn't worth mentioning to Xiao Chun. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 705. A peerless treasure like the heavenly spiritual pool had an indescribable allure to any warrior, even a saint. It was no exaggeration to say that the heavenly spiritual pool was enough to turn father and son against each other and brothers against each other. This was not an exaggeration at all. However, although everyone wanted treasures, there were some things in Xiao Qian's heart that no treasure could compare to. That was friendship. Xiao Chun did not have many friends along the way. It could even be said that he only had a few friends. However, this did not mean that Xiao Chun was someone who did not value friendship. On the contrary, this was a reflection of Xiao Qian's importance. It was precisely because he valued friendship that it was very difficult for Xiao Chun to approve of someone. Once someone was approved by Xiao Chun would definitely treat that person with sincerity, even if he would not be completely devoted to that person. In Xiao Qian's opinion, he would give up any precious treasure for the sake of the people around him, let alone a mere heavenly spiritual pool. It was precisely because of this that Xiao Chun had never had any improper thoughts about the heavenly spiritual pool. When he heard that Xiao Sheng wanted to share some of the energy in the heavenly spiritual pool with him, even if Xiao Chun did not understand the heavenly spiritual pool, he knew that this was simply a godsend opportunity for him. Moreover, from Xiao Sheng's words, it seemed that he would help him refine the energy in the heavenly spiritual pool. This made Xiao Chun feel very touched. Seeing that Xiao Chun was silent for a long time, Xiao Sheng obviously guessed what he was thinking. He laughed and scolded him. What are you thinking about, kid? Hurry up and remember the method I taught you. Otherwise, you can only look at the heavenly spiritual pool. Xiao Sheng jokingly scolded Xiao Chun. Then, he told Xiao Chun the method to refine the heavenly spiritual pool. With Xiao Chen's cultivation, not only would he need Xiao Sheng's help to refine the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiao Chun would also have to follow Xiao Sheng's method throughout the entire process. If there were any mistakes, the energy in the heavenly spiritual pool would be enough to cause Xiao Chun to explode in an instant. Xiao Sheng did not explain too much to Xiao Chun, nor did he say any emotional words. He only taught Xiao Chun the method to refine the heavenly spiritual pool in detail. Then, he let Xiao Chun ponder over it himself. As for Xiao Sheng, he came before the heavenly spiritual pool and casually slashed it. The pool, which was originally a hole, was instantly divided into two. Xiao Chun. 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool, 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. The 80% was for Xiao Sheng to use for his resurrection, while the 20% was for Xiao Chun. Don't think that Xiao Sheng was too stingy. He only gave Xiao Chun 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. This was already the limit that Xiao Chun could bear at the moment. The spiritual qi in the heavenly spirit pool was so dense that Xiao Chun was able to refine 20% of it, which was already a feat that went against the natural order of things. If it had not been for Xiao Sheng's help, it would have been impossible. After leaving 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool for Xiao Chun, Xiao Sheng took the lead and began to refine the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. Rather than refining, it was more accurate to say that Xiao Sheng merged his remnant soul with the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. He used the energy of the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool to ensure that his remnant soul would not dissipate. Because he was not refining it was not difficult for Xiaosheng. Xiaosheng's remnant soul slowly flew towards the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. Then it directly fell into the heavenly spiritual pool. At the same time, the heavenly spiritual pool began to boil and revolve around Xiaosheng. As it revolved, the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool continued to flow into Xiaosheng's remnant soul. It was like nutrients that constantly nourished Xiaosheng's remnant soul, preventing Xiaosheng from successfully resurrecting. It only took Xiaosheng 2 days to merge with the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. After all, he was not refining, so it was much simpler. After successfully absorbing the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiaosheng's remnant soul became much more solid. At first glance, it seemed no different from a living person. However, if one carefully sensed Xiaosheng, they would not be able to sense the slightest bit of life from him. There was still a faint smile on his face. After successfully absorbing the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiaoqian's remnant soul could last for at least 100 years. Of course, this was under the premise that he did not use the remnant soul's power recklessly. If he used the remnant soul's power during this period of time, the time would obviously be shortened. Strictly speaking, Xiaosheng's current state was a little strange. Because of the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiaosheng's current state should be between life and death. After all, even a saint's remnant soul could not exist for 100 years in this world. Xiaosheng had succeeded. At the same time, after 2 days of preparation, Xiaochun had also adjusted his state to its peak. With his hands behind his back, Xiaosheng walked up to Xiaochun and said with a smile, "Are you ready?" Hearing Xiaosheng's words, Xiaochun nodded. However, from his appearance, it could be seen that Xiaochun was a completely different person from before. His situation was clearly much better. Thus, Xiaochun secretly relaxed. Seeing Xiaochun nod, Xiaosheng did not waste any more words. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly spiritual pool that had been prepared for Xiaochun slowly flew toward Xiaochun. Follow my instructions. Remember, you cannot be greedy when refining the heavenly spiritual pool. You have to do it slowly. All right, calm your heart and concentrate, Xiaosheng said as he controlled the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. According to Xiaosheng's instructions, Xiaochun sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. At the same time, the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool slowly entered Xiaochun's body under Xiaosheng's control. According to Xiaosheng's instructions, Xiaochun could only refine the heavenly spiritual pool bit by bit with his current cultivation. First, he had to seal the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool within his body. Then, he had to separate a bit of energy to refine it. This process repeated until the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool was completely refined. Of course, during this entire process, Xiaosheng would also lend a hand. Furthermore, Xiaosheng did not tell Xiaochun that Xiaosheng would have to expend quite a bit of energy to help him refine the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. Originally, this strand of soul remnant could last for 100 years, but after helping Xiaochun, it could only last for 80 years. In an instant, it had lost 20 years. However, Xiaosheng did not mind at all because it was worth it. To Xiaosheng, the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool was incomparably important. Therefore, Xiaosheng did not mind expending a bit of energy for it. Xiaochun closed his eyes and began to refine the energy within the heavenly spiritual pool according to Xiaosheng's instructions. At the same time, Xiaosheng also sat cross-legged behind Xiaochun. He gently pressed his hands against Xiaochun's back, using his own energy to seal the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool within Xiaochun's body. Otherwise, the energy would leak out. At the same time, he helped Xiaochun refine the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool, speeding up the process. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 706. With Xiaosheng's assistance, Xiaochun was able to refine the heaven spirit pool much more easily. Strands of pure energy constantly circulated through his body. At the same time, Xiao Qin's cultivation shot up like a rocket, rapidly skyrocketing. The circular valley was silent. Xiao Qin and Xiao Shang sat there with their eyes closed. Time flew by, and Xiao Qin's cultivation constantly changed day after day. In just 3 days, Xiao Qin had broken through from the minor achievement of Dao validation to the major achievement of Dao validation. Breaking through a small level in 3 days was a speed that was absolutely shocking. Moreover, after the breakthrough, Xiao Qin had only used less than 1/20th of the 20% of the energy in the heaven spiritual pool. One could imagine how much energy was contained in the 20% of the heaven spiritual pool. It was no wonder that Xiao Shang had repeatedly warned Xiao Qin not to make any mistakes during the process. Otherwise, the tremendous amount of energy was not something Xiao Qin could digest right now. No one came to disturb Xiao Qin, and Xiao Qin began what could be described as the most satisfying seclusion of his life. As Xiao Qin crazily broke through, the Wind Ghost King had completely fallen into chaos. The Wind Ghost King searched for Xiao Qin like a madman. The death of his son had basically driven the Wind Ghost King insane. However, after searching for so long, Xiao Qin seemed to have vanished into thin air. There were no clues at all, which made the Wind Ghost King even crazier. For this reason, he did not hesitate to ally with the other Wind Ghost Kings of the Wind Ghost tribes. He even begged a Wind Ghost Saint ruler to help him search for Xiao Qin. Wind ghosts could be seen all over the wind plains, searching for something. However, despite mobilizing such a large force, they still failed to find Xiao Qin. The Wind Ghost's large-scale operation naturally could not escape St. Kuang Li's notice. After some investigation, St. Kuang Li found out that the Wind Ghost's crazy actions were all in search of a human cultivator. To his surprise, this human cultivator was Xiao Qin. Inside the City Lord mansion of Wind Suppression City, St. Kuang Li sat in the main hall with a smile on his rough face. This little guy is really bold. He actually killed a Saint Bloodwind ghost in the Wind Plains. Ha! St. Kuang Li knew from the beginning that Xiao Qin had entered the Wind Plains. Otherwise, the ancient sacred sect would not have rewarded Xiao Qin with 3 black armor talismans. They all thought that Xiao Qin had gone to the Wind Plains to gain experience. However, no one had expected that Xiao Qin would actually kill a saint-blooded wind ghost in the Wind Plains. This kind of courage was indeed amazing. It was no wonder that these wind ghosts had gone crazy. After his laughter faded away, St. Kuang Li muttered to himself with a profound expression, "Forget it, this old man finds this little fellow quite pleasing to the eye. There's no harm in helping him." After knowing what had happened in the Wind Plains, St. Kuang Li planned to help Xiao Qin. He liked Xiao Qin, but more importantly, Xiao Qin had already caught the attention of the upper echelons of the ancient sacred sect. Unless it was something extremely important, the ancient sacred sect naturally would not allow Xiao Qin to die in the Wind Plains. On the same day, St. Kuang Li called for St. Qingju and St. Tianfeng through a sound transmission talisman. The 3 saints entered the Wind Plains together. The 3 saints' entry into the Wind Plains naturally attracted the attention of the Wind Ghost clan. Before the 3 of them could enter the Wind Plains, the Wind Ghost Saint Kings of the Wind Ghost clan all appeared. There were 7 of them in total. The 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings blocked the path of St. Kuang Li and the others. The atmosphere became tense. At the same time, one of the Wind Ghost Saint Kings asked coldly, "Human saints, do you want to die? Can you kill us?" Hearing those words, St. Qingjue said indifferently, "In terms of strength, humans were clearly stronger than the Wind Ghost clan. If the ancient sacred sect wanted to, they could destroy the Wind Ghost clan at any time." This was no joke. However, the ancient sacred sect had not killed the Wind Ghost clan until now. The reason was very simple. There were no benefits. Naturally, it was not worth doing something that did not benefit them. Firstly, the Wind Ghost clan lived in the Wind Plains. The Wind Plains was a land of death for humans. Although it could be used as a training ground, there were no other benefits apart from that. Destroying the Wind Ghost clan and gaining control of the Wind Plains was meaningless to the ancient sacred sect and all the human cultivators in the ancient sacred state. The Wind Plains was the home of the Wind Ghost clan, but it was of little value to humans. It was clearly not worth it to fight to the death with the Wind Ghost clan for a piece of chicken rib. Even if the ancient sacred sect had enough power to destroy the Wind Ghost clan, they would definitely have to pay a price. The price was not proportional to the benefits, which was why the ancient sacred sect had not attacked the Wind Ghost clan. From an ancient sacred sect's point of view, as long as the Wind Ghost clan did not go overboard and did not affect the stability of the ancient sacred state, there was naturally no need to pay too much attention to them. As for the Wind Ghost attack, the impact was not great. After all, it was only around the Wind Suppression City. The Wind Ghost clan was also very conscious. Even if they broke through the Wind Suppression City, they would not advance into the hinterland of the ancient sacred state. In fact, both humans and Wind Ghost clan were very clear about the sensitive relationship between the two clans. They also knew each other's bottom line. Therefore, as long as they did not cross the bottom line, everything was still under control. The humans did not want to destroy the Wind Ghost clan, and the Wind Ghost clan did not dare to cross the bottom line of the humans. Therefore, even though the 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings blocked their path, the 3 of them did not change their expressions at all. This was because the 3 of them knew very well that the Wind Ghost clan would definitely not dare to kill a human saint, because if they did, they would undoubtedly be digging their own graves. Killing a human saint was definitely crossing the bottom line of the ancient sacred sect. Once such a thing happened, the ancient sacred sect would definitely uproot the entire Wind Ghost clan, even if they had to pay a price. The 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings did not care about Saint Chinju's faint smile. Of course, they would not attack either. The Wind Ghost Saint King that had spoken earlier said coldly, "Human saints, why have you come to the Wind Plains?" Clearly, the Wind Ghost Saint King did not want to be entangled with the human saints, so he did not mince his words. It was as if he was saying, "If you have something to say it and scram." Facing the Wind Ghost Saint King's attitude, the 3 saints did not get angry. The 3 of them were clearly here for Shao Chun. Stepping forward, Saint Chinju said directly, "I heard that the Wind Ghost clan is looking for a human cultivator. This person is a disciple of our ancient sacred sect. I hope you will not harm him." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 707. Saint Kuangli did not mince his words either, stating the purpose of their trip. Joining forces with Saint Qingjue and Saint Tianfeng to enter the Wind Plains. The purpose of the 3 saints was naturally to deal with Shao Chun. Hearing Saint Kuang Li's words, the 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings' faces darkened. Then, one of the Wind Ghost Saint Kings yelled, "You're talking about Shao Chun? Humph, he killed a Saint Blood Wind Ghost. How can we let him leave the Wind Plains alive?" Killing a Saint Blood Wind Ghost was like poking a hornet's nest, but Saint Kuang Li didn't care at all. "I said, you can't touch Shao Chun." The 7 Wind Ghost Sacred Kings were furious. The Wind Ghost Sacred King that had spoken earlier said coldly, "Let's go," said the Wind Ghost Sacred King. "So what if we touch him? If anything happens to Shao Chun, you Wind Ghost Rays can wait to die." "Oh, I forgot to tell you, Shao Chun is our human perspective holy son. You should know the consequences of killing him." Saint Kuang Li smiled. The 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings fell silent when they heard Saint Kuang Li's words. There were 2 kinds of human martial artists that couldn't be killed. One was the saints, and the other was the saints' sons. The Wind Ghost tribe was very clear about this. Killing a human saint son would definitely infuriate the ancient saint sect. Prospective holy sons were people who had the potential to become holy son in the ancient sacred sect. They had an extraordinary status. Of course, Shao Chun wasn't a prospective holy son yet. He had only attracted the attention of the ancient sacred sect's higher-ups, but he was still far from becoming a prospective holy son. Saint Kuang Li only said this to make the Wind Ghost race hesitate. As expected, The seven-wind ghost Saint Kings fell silent when they heard that Shao Chun was a prospective holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Since Shao Chun was a prospective holy son of the ancient sacred sect, killing him would probably be troublesome. No one knew what Saint Kuang Li and the other human saints had discussed with the seven-wind ghost Saint Kings. However, after Saint Kuang Li and the other two left the Wind Plains, the Wind Ghost race quickly gave up on pursuing Shao Chen's whereabouts. They had no choice. They weren't strong enough, so they could only swallow their anger. Not to mention the Wind Ghost race's race. Wind Ghost race? Wind Ghost. S.Y. Of. The reason was very simple. It was because of the Wind Ghost race's reproductive ability. Compared to humans, Wind Ghost race's reproductive ability could be said to be terrifying. Humans needed more than 10 years to grow from birth to adulthood, but Wind Ghost race only needed a short year to mature. Such a terrifying growth rate naturally caused the number of wind ghosts to rapidly increase every day. The Wind Plains was only so big. It couldn't accommodate so many wind ghosts. In this way, the Wind Ghost race's attack was a method to deplete the number of wind ghosts. Of course, it would be even better if they could break into Wind Suppression City and obtain the flesh of human cultivators. After all, the flesh of human cultivators was very attractive to Wind Ghost race. The Wind Ghost race's attack was a compromise between humans and Wind Ghost race. After giving up on pursuing Shao Chun, the Wind Plains regained its peace. Shao Chun knew nothing about this. Shao Chun had been in seclusion for an entire month in the valley. During this month, Shao Chun's cultivation kept rising. He had already reached the great circle of the Tao validation realm. With such a huge increase, more than half of the heaven spiritual pool's 20% energy had been consumed. At this moment, less than a third of the energy had yet to be absorbed and refined by Shao Chun. His cultivation kept rising. It was time for him to break through to the Tao Gate realm. At this moment, Shao Sheng's voice sounded in Shao Chen's mind. "Kid, break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go. I will pass on my understanding of the Tao Gate realm to you. Use the remaining energy of the heaven's spiritual pool to break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go." His cultivation had already reached the great circle of the Tao validation realm. However, Shao Chun didn't ask Shao Chun to stop. Instead, he asked Shao Chun to break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go. This opportunity to break through was extremely rare for Shao Chun. Not only did he have the help of the heaven spiritual pool, but he also had Shao Sheng's understanding of the Tao Gate realm. As a result, Shao Chun's chances of breaking through to the Tao Gate realm naturally increased greatly. As Shao Sheng's voice fell, a huge amount of information was directly transmitted into Shao Chen's mind by Shao Sheng using a secret technique. This information was Shao Sheng's understanding of the Tao Gate realm. The Tao querying realm was to search for one's own martial Tao. The Tao validation realm was to prove one's own martial Tao. As for the Tao Gate realm, it was to control the power of martial Tao. In order to break through to the Tao Gate realm, the martial artist had to turn his dantian into a Tao Gate. Once the Tao Gate was formed, he would naturally be able to achieve the Tao Gate realm. For Shao Chun, the understanding that Shao Sheng had passed on to him was absolutely priceless. It saved Shao Chun a lot of trouble. Perhaps this was what people often said. It was a blessing to have a powerful master for cultivation. This was indeed the case. Without Shao Sheng, even with the help of the heaven spiritual pool, Shao Chun would never be able to break through to the Tao Gate realm. The reason was very simple. He didn't have enough understanding. It could be said that Shao Chen's existence was the best master for Shao Chun. He was a bright light on the road of cultivation. With the help of Shao Sheng, Shao Chun could avoid any detours, at least before reaching the Sage Realm. Another half a month passed, as Shao Chun experienced the understanding that Shao Sheng had passed on to him. On this day, Shao Chen's dantian finally changed. The originally invisible dantian began to slowly converge and fuse. Gradually, it formed an illusory Tao Gate. The Tao Gate had just been formed. At this time, it had reached the most critical moment. He had to stabilize this newly formed Tao Gate. As long as he could stabilize it, Xiao Qian would be able to break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go. If he failed, all his previous efforts would be wasted. As time passed, Xiao Qian's Tao Gate became more and more temporary. At the same time, the remaining heaven spiritual pool was also frantically injecting energy into Xiao Qian's newly formed Tao Gate. The Tao Gate was also greedily absorbing the pure energy of the heaven's spiritual pool like a whale. Seeing that he was about to succeed, Xiao Qian couldn't help but guess in his heart, I don't know the level of this kid's Tao Gate. However, with the help of the heaven's spiritual pool and his own foundation, it shouldn't be bad. However, if he wants to become the Holy Son, I'm afraid it still depends on his luck. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations. Chapter 708. Xiao Qian was curious about the level of Xiao Qian's gate. It was well known that once a warrior stepped into the Yellow Realm, the first step would be to condense the Dantian. Then, it would stabilize and increase the power of the Dantian. When one reached the Tao Gate realm, the Dantian would turn into a gate. The gate was different from the Dantian. The gate was divided into levels. It was affected by talent, strength, and various aspects of the Dantian. The gate condensed by a warrior in the Tao Gate realm was divided into 8 levels according to its strength. The higher the level of the gate condensed, the stronger the warrior would be after breaking through to the Tao Gate realm. At the same time, the benefits of breaking through to the Saint realm in the future would be greater. From low to high, the gate was divided into 8 levels. The division of the gate was very simple and direct. It was based on the number of edges. Everyone's gate had the same shape. This was affected by the rules of heaven and could not be changed. However, there would be edges at the top of each gate. Each corner represented a level of Tao Gate. In other words, after forming a Tao Gate, if there was only one corner at the top of the Tao Gate, then it was a Tao Gate. It was also the most ordinary and lowest level Tao Gate. Of course, the number of warriors who condensed the first gate was the highest. These warriors would have no hope of breaking through to the Tao Transformation realm in their lifetime, because the first gate did not have the qualifications to break through to the Tao Transformation realm. If there were 2 edges above the first gate, it would be the second gate. The second gate had the qualifications to break through to the Tao Transformation realm, but that was it. As for breaking through to the Saint stage, one would have to at least reach the Penadao Gate. Of course, there was only a slight chance of reaching the Penadao Gate. If one did not have a great opportunity, one would never be able to break through to the Saint stage and become a saint. As for the 6-edged Tao Gates, the 7-edged Tao Gates, and the final 8-edged Tao Gates, they were naturally stronger than the previous ones. It could be said that the final 8-edged Tao Gates allowed one to break through to the Saint realm. However, it wasn't easy to condense an 8-edged Tao Gate. Among hundreds of millions of Tao Gate realm martial artists, there might not even be one who possessed an 8-edged Tao Gate. There might not even be a 7-edged Tao Gate. If one wanted to become a saint in the future, a 7-gate was the minimum requirement. In other words, if the gate that Xiao Qian condensed this time did not reach the 7th gate, he would not be a saint. The ancient saint sect would never cultivate a person who did not even reach the 7th gate to become a saint. This was simply impossible. It would only be a waste of resources. Because he knew all this, Xiao Qian was a little nervous while waiting for Xiao Qian's gate to take shape. Xiao Qian watched Xiao Qian's gate nervously. After some time, Xiao Qian's Dantian, Zhao's Dantian had disappeared. Was replaced as Dantian had disappeared. The gate finally took shape. At the same time, 2 edges appeared at the top of the gate. Then, the second edge slowly took shape. 1, 2, 3. Xiao Qian's gate continued to take shape. Throughout this process, Xiao Qian watched with rapt attention. At the same time, he was sweating profusely for Xiao Qian. In the end, when Xiao Qian's gate had the 7th edge, Xiao Qian heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally reached the 7th gate. As long as he had the 7th gate, Xiao Qian would have the qualifications to become the saint child of the ancient saint sect. However, Before Xiao Sheng could rejoice, the eighth edge slowly condensed and took shape on Xiao Chen's gate. Eight-edge Dao Gate. This kid, Xiao Sheng, was stunned when he sensed the appearance of the eighth edge. Originally, he was nervous about whether Xiao Chen could condense the seventh gate or not. But now, Xiao Chen's gate wasn't just the seventh gate. It was the highest level of eight-edge gate. An eight-edge gate was the highest level of gate. Back then, Xiao Sheng had an eight-edge gate, which was why he became the #1 saint of the Sky River continent. Among the current holy sons of the Tiana continent, Xiao Chen could guarantee that the holy sons who had reached the level of eight-edge Dao sects were not more than average. Most of the holy sons should be at the level of seven-edge Dao sects. It was no exaggeration to say that Xiao Chen would definitely become the saint child of the ancient saint sect. He would definitely break through the saint realm and become a saint. Xiao Sheng was overjoyed that Xiao Chen had condensed the eight-edge gate. After a long while, Xiao Sheng laughed and scolded. This brat is really worrisome. Ha! He was sincerely happy for Xiao Chen. When the eight-edge gate took shape, Xiao Chen felt as if some kind of shackle had been broken. In an instant, his aura began to soar. The remaining energy of the heavenly spirit pool began to overflow like a broken dam. Xiao Chen's body began to absorb the pure and enormous energy in an uncontrollable manner. Like rain after a long drought, the energy of the heavenly spiritual pond was constantly being absorbed by Xiao Chen. At the same time, Xiao Chen's aura also quickly broke through the Dao confirmation realm and reached the Dao gate realm. After successfully breaking through, Xiao Chen's entire body seemed to have been sublimated. Breaking through a major realm had great benefits for a cultivator, especially when breaking through from the Dao confirmation realm to the Dao gate realm. This was because when one reached the Dao gate realm, the Dantian would turn into a Dao gate. The benefits of this were already difficult to describe with words. It took Xiao Chen 3 days to absorb all the energy of the heavenly spiritual pond in his body. His cultivation also successfully stabilized at the Dao gate realm. If it was before, Xiao Chen would never have believed that he had broken through from the minor completion Dao validation realm all the way to the entry Dao gate realm in less than 2 months. This kind of breakthrough speed could simply be described as shocking. After sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed for more than a month, Xiao Chen slowly opened his eyes. He felt that his body was full of energy. If he was facing him from more than a month ago, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Xiao Chen felt that a single punch would be enough to determine the winner. Xiao Chen was in a great mood. He finally felt that he was getting closer and closer to becoming a saint. A smile involuntarily appeared on his face. At the same time, Xiao Sheng also opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Kid, not bad. You're better than I expected." Xiao Chen's breakthrough was completely witnessed by Xiao Sheng. After hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chen smiled from the bottom of his heart. Then, Xiao Chen looked at the golden Dao gate in his Dantian and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. So this is my Dao gate. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 709. This was the first time he had seen his own Dao gate. From the golden Dao gate, a pure energy constantly spread out in Xiao Chen's body. At the same time, Xiao Chen's spiritual energy would flow through the Dao gate after circulating through his meridians. He could clearly feel that his spiritual power had become pure after passing through the Haoyin gate. The Haoyin gate had the effect of condensing spiritual power. Normally, spiritual power would constantly flow through the Haoyin gate. Over time, Xiao Chen's spiritual power would become more and more condensed. It had to be said that this Dao gate was indeed more than 1 level stronger than the Dantian. The Dao gate was also a symbol of stepping into the realm of the strong. After carefully observing his Dao gate, Xiao Chen withdrew from his body. Then, he looked at Xiao Sheng, who had already stood up, and said with a smile, "Old ancestor, I feel that I'm much stronger than I was a month ago. If I meet the sacred blood wind ghost again, I'm afraid that I'll be able to kill it with a single punch." Xiao Qin's words were not false at all. Moreover, in front of Xiao Sheng, Xiao Chun did not need to hide anything. The excitement in his heart was fully revealed. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, Xiao Qin also had a smile on his face as he scolded with a smile. "You little brat, the strength of the Tao Gate is naturally incomparable to that of the heavenly realm. Before the Tao Gate realm, a martial artist's body only has the Dantian. Once they break through to the Tao Gate realm, the Dantian will turn into a Tao Gate. Naturally, their strength will undergo a qualitative transformation. Moreover, the Tao Gate that you condensed is not an ordinary Tao Gate, but an 8-edged Tao Gate. The Tao Gate was already much stronger than the Dantian. Moreover, the Tao Gate that Xiao Chun condensed was the highest level, the 8-edged Tao Gate. The difference between the two was even greater. Hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun did not know about the levels of the Tao Gate. He asked with a puzzled expression, 8-edged Tao Gate. Xiao Chun did not know much about the Tao Gate. Then, Xiao Sheng patiently explained it to him. Xiao Chun heard that the Tao sects were divided into 8 levels, and his Tao sect was actually the highest level, the octagonal Tao sect. For a moment, Xiao Chun was naturally even more excited, because Xiao Sheng had said that it was only a matter of time before he became the holy son of the ancient sacred sect with his octagonal Tao Gate. Similarly, it was also only a matter of time before he became a saint. How could Xiao Chun not feel excited when he thought about how his position as the Holy Son was already set in stone? He stood up and clenched his fists. Looking at the dark sky of the wind plains, Xiao Chun swore, "Holy Yin sect, and Yun Luan, just you wait. I, Xiao Chun, will definitely pay a visit to your sect one day." Xiao Chun was so eager to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Part of it was because he wanted to become stronger, but more importantly, it was because of Guling Yao. Xiao Sheng had also said that the simplest and most realistic way to save Guling Yao was to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Only by becoming the holy son of the ancient sacred sect would Xiao Chun have the right to speak in front of the holy Yin sect. Only then would the holy Yin sect value Xiao Chun. Otherwise, Xiao Chun would not even have the right to speak to the holy Yin sect. Holy son, holy son. This was the prerequisite to saving Guling Yao. If one was not a holy son, they would not have the right to speak to the holy Yin sect. Ever since Guling Yao had been forcefully brought back to the holy Yin sect by Yun Luan, Xiao Chun had always been holding back his pride to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Now, after breaking through to the Tao Gate realm and condensing the 8-gate inverted edge, Xiao Chun had finally taken a big step towards the holy son position. The holy sun position that was once unattainable and high up in the sky did not seem so far away anymore. After a moment of excitement, Xiao Chun suppressed the excitement and hatred in his heart. The road was still very long. At least before he became the holy sun, Xiao Chun could not relax in the slightest. Seeing Xiao Chen's eyes turn from excitement to determination, Xiao Sheng smiled and nodded. "Kid, you've already condensed the 8-gate Tao Gate. There's no point in going to Tianfeng Shenzong anymore. Right now, your best choice is to find a chance to enter the ancient sacred sect. It's best if you can let the upper echelons of the ancient sacred sect know about your talent and potential. If you can become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, that would be the best result for you right now." Xiao Chun had broken through to the Tao Gate realm, so there was no point in returning to Tianfeng Shenzong. Xiao Sheng wanted Xiao Chun to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, because once he became the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Chun would receive treatment second only to the holy son. With the support of the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Chun would be able to maintain rapid progress and catch up to the holy sons in the shortest time possible to become the new holy son of the ancient sacred sect. If he wanted to get Guling Yao, he had to seize every second. Xiao Sheng's suggestion was to choose the shortest path for Xiao Chun. Of course, although this would save a lot of time, the hardships and difficulties involved were far beyond everyone's imagination. Step by step, from Tianfeng Shenzong to the ancient sacred sect, and then to becoming the holy son. In this way, everything would be logical and the pressure on Xiao Chun would naturally be much less. However, this would take too long. Xiao Chun did not have so much time to waste, so he could only take the risk. Even if the pressure on him was much greater, so what? Sure enough, after hearing Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun had no intention of backing down. His eyes were filled with determination as he said faintly, "The holy son of the ancient sacred sect?" After breaking through to the Tao Gate realm, Xiao Chun's confidence increased greatly. He also began to think about the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. No, to be precise, Xiao Chun was no longer thinking about the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. He was determined to get it. Although he did not know how many holy sons there were in the ancient sacred sect, no matter how many there were, he had to have a place in it. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Chun looked at Xiao Sheng and said, "Old ancestor, let's go. We have already obtained the heaven's spiritual pool. It's time for us to leave the wind plane and head to the ancient sacred sect." Xiao Chun planned to head to the ancient sacred sect through the heavenly wind saint, and then find a way to become a holy son. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Xiao Sheng smiled and nodded. Immediately after, Xiao Sheng returned to Xiao Chun's body. Xiao Chun climbed up the towering cliff with his bare hands and returned to the wind plain. The wind plain was still incomparably desolate. Not even a blade of grass grew. After using the black armor talisman, Xiao Chun began to rush towards the wind-suppressing city. Along the way, the wind plain seemed to have returned to peace. It was very difficult to see any traces of the wind ghost. Of course, Xiao Chun did not know that the reason why the wind plain was so peaceful was because of the Kuang-Li Saint, the Qingju Saint, and the Heavenly Wind Saint. If it were not for the three of them, there would probably be countless wind ghosts searching for Xiao Chun's whereabouts in the wind plain. A few days later, Xiao Chun left the core of the wind plain and entered the outer region of the wind plain, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. In a chapter. Chapter 710. The journey back from the depths of the wind plains was so smooth that it was puzzling. Xiao Chun did not encounter a single wind ghost attack. There were even a few times when he could see wind ghosts in the distance, but the wind ghosts would quickly turn around and leave. Xiao Chun was speechless. He even suspected that the wind ghosts were avoiding him. However, how was that possible? Given the relationship between humans and wind ghosts, how could they possibly avoid him? Moreover, these ordinary wind ghosts had low intelligence. They did not even know what fear was. So how could they avoid him? Xiao Chun naturally did not know that the wind ghosts were acting like this because of the wind ghost saint ruler's orders. After the discussion with the saint of Kuang-Li and the others, the wind ghost saint ruler had ordered that no wind ghost was to provoke Xiao Chun. At the same time, one of the wind ghost saint rulers had personally stepped forward to appease the wind ghost king. With the wind ghost saint ruler's orders, Xiao Chun was naturally safe in the wind plains. Let alone danger. Even if human cultivators wanted to harm Xiao Chun, the wind ghost saint rulers would not agree. This was because the saint of Kuang-Li had said that Xiao Chun was the chosen saint of the ancient sacred sect. In any case, nothing could happen to Xiao Chun in the wind plains. The wind ghost saint rulers knew this very well. It had to be said that the ancient sacred clan had done Xiao Chun a great favor without him knowing anything. Nothing happened along the way. Xiao Chun soon left the wind plains. This trip to the wind plains had been rather smooth, and the result could be said to be a happy one. Xiao Sheng had obtained the heaven's spiritual pool, and Xiao Chun himself had advanced by leaps and bounds because of it. His strength was many times stronger than when he had entered the wind plains over a month ago. In just over a month, he had broken through from the initial Tao validation realm to the initial Tao gate realm. This speed was something that even Xiao Chun had not expected. After leaving the wind plains, the sky once again became bright and sunny. Compared to the gloomy and desolate wind plains, the outside world was simply too blissful. Xiao Chun took a deep breath. He had gotten used to the environment of the wind plains over a month ago. Facing the azure sky and the extremely comfortable breeze, Xiao Chun felt much better. It's time to return to Tianfeng Shenzong. then head to the ancient sacred sect. Xiao Chun took a deep breath and thought to himself. Along the way, Xiao Chun and Xiao Sheng had already discussed their plans. With a plan, Xiao Chun directly headed towards Wind Suppression City. Not long after, Xiao Chun entered Wind Suppression City. After the previous battle, the guards of Wind Suppression City clearly knew about Xiao Chun. Therefore, when they saw Xiao Chun walking over, they did not check him and directly chose to relax. Moreover, their attitudes were extremely respectful. After returning to Wind Suppression City after more than a month, Xiao Chun planned to rest for a night before returning to Tianfeng Shengzhou. After all, Xiao Chun's life had been very difficult for more than a month. Now that he had returned to Wind Suppression City, he naturally wanted to properly relax. However, Xiao Chun did not know that as soon as he entered the city, the Tang clan, one of the 3 great clans of Wind Suppression City, received the news. At this moment, in a magnificent mansion located in the southeast of Wind Suppression City. The scale of this mansion was second only to the Wind Suppression City's City Lord's mansion. This was also the mansion of the Tang clan, one of the 3 great clans of Wind Suppression City. In the main hall of the mansion, a middle-aged man sat boldly in the main seat. He looked at the person below with a gloomy expression. "Are you sure that little bastard is back?" Reporting to the clan head, "I'm sure that Xiao Chun is back. He just entered the city." Over a month later, the Tang clan learned that Xiao Chun had killed Tang Tianbao. Back then, Tang Tianbao had gone to the Wind Plains to train, but there was no news from him even after half a month had passed. As such, Tang Ming, Tang Tianbao's father, and also the father of the Tang clan, found it strange and sent people to the Wind Plains to look for him. However, what Tang Ming did not expect was that he did not find Tang Tianbao's whereabouts. Instead, he learned that Tang Tianbao had been killed by Xiao Chun from other human cultivators who had entered the Wind Plains to train. As the saying went, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Furthermore, Xiao Chun did not deliberately hide the fact that he had killed Tang Tianbao, so the news naturally spread. When Xiao Chun had killed Tang Tianbao, there had been another group of human cultivators nearby who had witnessed everything. Tang Ming did not know why Xiao Chun had killed Tang Tianbao. In Tang Ming's heart, since Xiao Chun had dared to kill his son, he wanted Xiao Chun dead. After confirming that Xiao Chun had returned to Wind Suppression City, Tang Ming's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, "All right, I'll use this kid's head today to comfort my son Tianbao's soul in heaven." After saying that, Tang Ming immediately ordered the Tang family guards to capture Xiao Chun. In response, the Tang family guard beside Tang Ming said worriedly, "Family, Xiao Chun is a direct disciple of Tianfeng Shengzhou. If our Tang family kills him, He did not finish his sentence, but the meaning of the Tang family guard was clear. Xiao Chun was a direct disciple of Tianfeng Shengzhou. If they killed him, would they offend Tianfeng Shengzhou? Tang Ming did not care about the guard's worry and said coldly, "Humph, if it were any other day, I would be afraid of Xiao Chun. But now, Chung has been promoted to a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect and is at home. With Chung here, why would I be afraid of that little bastard Xiao Chun?" The Chung that Tang Ming mentioned was called Tang Tianqing. He was Tang Tianbao's elder brother and also Tang Ming's biological son. Tang Ming had 2 sons. Compared to Tang Tianbao, who was ignorant and incompetent, Tang Tianqing was the pride of Tang Ming and the entire Tang family. Not only did Tang Tianqing display an extremely high talent in cultivation from a young age, but he was also sent to the ancient sacred sect by Tang Ming. Later on, Tang Tianbao successfully entered the ancient sacred sect with his own efforts and was promoted to a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect. During this period of time, Tang Tianqing had returned home from the ancient sacred sect for a visit. Even though Xiao Chun was a direct disciple of Tianfeng Shengzhou, Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect. Even a fool could tell who was more valuable. With his precious son, Tang Tianqing, even if he killed Xiao Chun, what could Tianfeng Shengzhou do? Hearing Tang Ming's words, A look of admiration appeared on the guard's face. When Tang Tiancheng was mentioned, any member of the Tang family would be proud. With Tang Tiancheng, the Tang family did not fear Xiao Chen at all. He bowed respectfully to Tang Ming and said confidently, "Don't worry, family head. I'll bring people to capture Xiao Chen. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." End of chapter. Chapter 711. Because of Tang Tiancheng, the Tang family no longer had any scruples about Xiao Chen. They were both direct disciples, but one was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect, while the other was a direct disciple of the Tianfeng Shengzhou. There was a huge gap between the two. Most intuitively, Xiao Chen could only be regarded as a direct disciple of a branch sect, while Tang Tiancheng was a direct disciple of the main sect. A direct disciple of the main sect naturally wouldn't care about a direct disciple of a branch sect. As soon as he finished speaking, the guard of the Tang family immediately rushed toward where Xiao Chen was with a menacing aura. After learning that Xiao Chen had killed Tang Tianbao, the Tang family had already investigated Xiao Chen. They knew that Xiao Chen's cultivation was only at the Dao confirmation realm. Therefore, Tang Ming didn't intend to capture Xiao Chen personally. He didn't even send out the experts of the Tang family. He only sent 4 Dao Gate Realm Guards. Presumably, 4 Dao Gate Realm Guard were enough to deal with Xiao Chen. Even if he was a direct disciple, no matter how heaven-defying he was, it was already very difficult to defeat an enemy who was 1 realm higher than him. And Xiao Chen had no chance of winning against 4 Dao Gate Realm martial artists. Of course, the Tang clan would never have imagined that Xiao Chen had only been in the Wind Plains for a little over a month. In less than 2 months, Xiao Chen's cultivation had already broken through from the initial Dao Validation Realm to the initial Dao Gate Realm, and he had even condensed the 8-edged Dao Gate. Unaware of the change in Xiao Chen's strength, the 4 Dao Gate Realm martial artists of the Tang family went out aggressively and rushed towards Xiao Chen's location. Xiao Chen, who had just entered the wind-suppressing city and hadn't found a place to stay, naturally didn't know that the Tang family's people were rushing towards him. The entire wind-suppressing city was still bustling with people. The disciples of the various saint sects and martial artists from all over the place gathered here. Along the way, Xiao Chen was looking for a place to stay tonight. After working hard for more than a month, Xiao Chen naturally wanted to relax. He first took a comfortable bath and then had a good meal. Of course, good wine was also indispensable. Just as Xiao Chen was strolling on the street in a good mood, Xiao Shang smiled mysteriously and said, "Kid, it seems that it's impossible for you to relax. Someone is here." After merging with the Heaven's spirit pool, Xiao Shang's perceptive ability obviously had recovered a lot. Xiao Chen was far from it. Xiao Chen was puzzled when he heard Zhao's words. Who was here? He guessed that he hadn't offended anyone when he entered the city, right? He was puzzled, but soon, 4 Dao Gate Realm martial artists of the Tang family appeared in front of him aggressively. Feeling the momentum of the 4 Tang family martial artists in front of him, Xiao Chen frowned slightly and said with a slightly cold tone, "Is there anything I can help you with?" As soon as the 4 of them appeared, they blocked all of Xiao Chen's escape routes without any explanation. 2 of them stood in front of Xiao Chen, while the other 2 stood behind him. Xiao Chen was naturally not going to be nice to these 4 people who had come with ill intentions. However, he still did not know the identities of these 4 people, which was why he asked. In the face of Xiao Chen's question, the 4 Tang clan martial artists sneered. The leader, a middle-aged man who was at the great fulfillment of Dao Gate Realm, stepped forward and sneered at Xiao Chen. "Yes? Xiao Chen, you really don't know what's good for you. You killed our young master, and you still dare to enter the wind-suppressing city openly. Do you really think our Tang family doesn't care about you?" Tang family? After hearing the middle-aged man's words, Xiao Chen quickly guessed the identities of these 4 people. Xiao Chen had almost forgotten that he had killed the Tang family's young master, Tang Tianbao, in the Wind Plains. However, it was obvious that the Tang family had received the news and came to seek revenge. In the blink of an eye, he had guessed the whole story. Seeing this, the middle-aged man sneered. "Why? Have you remembered? However, it's too late for regrets now. The four from the Tang clan were aggressive, but Xiao Chun did not care about them at all. He had long sensed that the four of them were all in the Tao Gate realm, and the most powerful one was in the great fulfillment of the Tao Gate realm. However, although their cultivation was higher than Xiao Chen's, Xiao Chen wasn't afraid. This was because the Tao Gate that Xiao Chen had condensed was an 8-edged Tao Gate. According to Xiao Chen's guess, the Tao Gate that the four people in front of him had condensed was no more than 2-edged Tao Gates. The gap between the Tao Gates was too big. Therefore, even if the cultivation of these four people was higher than his, they still wouldn't be his match. At this time, Xiao Chen was actually most interested in why the Tang family would seek revenge from him. How could a mere Tang family dare to go against Tianfeng Shengzong? Many people knew that he was a direct disciple of the Heavenly Wind Saints sect, and the Tang family obviously knew about it as well. Knowing his identity, the Tang family still dared to take revenge. What did they rely on? He was curious about where the Tang family's confidence came from. Of course, Xiao Chen still didn't regret killing Tang Tianbao, because he had asked for it. The corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up slightly, and a cold smile bloomed on his face. Looking at the middle-aged man who was leading the group, Xiao Chen said plainly, "Regret? Haha, I think you might have misunderstood. If you're referring to killing Tang Tianbao, I still don't regret it because he deserved to die." Would he regret killing Tang Tianbao? This was simply nonsense. There was no fear in his eyes. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the middle-aged man was immediately furious, and a terrifying killing intent constantly spread out. At the same time, the other three people beside him also shouted one after another. "Captain, why waste your breath on him? Just take him back and let the patriarch deal with him." That's right. Death is at hand, and he still doesn't know what's good for him. When the time comes, we must let the patriarch put him to death. The four people of the Tang family were not afraid at all, because they knew Xiao Chen too well. Even if he was a genius, he was still too young and could only be trampled under the feet of the four of them. It had to be said that the four guards of the Tang family were really too careless. Not to mention that Xiao Chen did not show the slightest bit of panic when facing the four of them. From the beginning to the end, the four of them did not deliberately sense Xiao Chen's cultivation. From the beginning, the four of them had the preconceived notion that Xiao Chen's cultivation was at the initial Tao validation realm, so they did not even bother to sense his cultivation. Of course, if they were willing to personally sense Xiao Chen's cultivation, they would find that the four of them could not see Xiao Chen's cultivation at all. With the existence of the octagonal door, unless one's cultivation was far superior, no one could see Xiao Chen's cultivation. This was also the reason why Xiao Chen could not see through the cultivation of Chunyu and the other chosen. Hearing that the four of them wanted to take him back to the Tang family and put him to death, Xiao Chen laughed and said coldly, "I'm afraid the four of you are not enough to capture me. Please collect, please vote, please recommend me." In a chapter. Chapter 712. Xiao Chen didn't care about the four Tang family Tao Gate realm cultivators at all. Facing Xiao Chen's calm and indifferent attitude, the faces of the four Tang family Tao Gate realm cultivators immediately sank, and the leading Tang family Tao Gate realm cultivator shouted coldly, "Kid, you're courting death. Go, break his limbs and bring him back." Tang Meng's order was to capture Xiao Chen alive, so the four Tang family Tao Gate realm cultivators didn't think of killing Xiao Chen on the spot. Hearing their leader's order, the three Tang family Tao Gate realm cultivators sneered as they approached Xiao Chen. Their eyes flickered with undisguised coldness. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. Under his calm gaze, the three Tang family Tao Gate realm cultivators launched their attacks. The three of them attacked at the same time, attacking Xiao Chen from three different directions. A month ago, Xiao Chen was only in the Tao confirmation realm. Even if he was Tianfeng Shengzong's direct disciple, and his battle prowess far surpassed those of the same realm, a Tao confirmation realm cultivator was still a Tao confirmation realm cultivator. How could Xiao Chen be a match for three Tao Gate realm cultivators? Because of this thought, the three Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators didn't put Shao Chun in their eyes at all. Perhaps in their opinion, even if a young genius like Shao Chun had heaven-defying talent, he still hadn't truly matured. Kid, you dare to kill my Tang family's young master. No one can protect you today. The three of them shouted coldly as their attacks arrived. Just when everyone thought that Shao Chun would be crippled by the three of them, Shao Chun suddenly moved. He took a step forward and instantly executed the ferocious tiger stampede, appearing in front of one of the Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators in the blink of an eye. He lightly tapped his finger and executed the Tai E sword finger. His speed was unbelievably fast. Before the Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivator could react, Shao Chen's Tai E sword finger had already struck him. At such a close distance, there was no way for the Tang clan cultivator to evade. Enveloped by the thick pillar of spiritual energy from the Tai E sword finger, the Tang clan cultivator's body was instantly devoured. Shao Chen's counterattack was too fast. It was so fast that no one could react in time. Roughly a dozen breaths later, the Tai E sword finger slowly dissipated, and the Tang clan cultivator appeared before everyone once more. However, at this moment, there was not a single trace of life in him. A single finger had killed a person. Faced with such an outcome, not to mention the Tang family members, even the many cultivators watching from afar could not help but gasp. Everyone was familiar with Shao Chun, especially after the Wind Ghost attack. It was also because of their familiarity with Shao Chun that everyone thought that Shao Chun was doomed this time. After all, he was facing four Dao querying realm cultivators. In the face of such strong opponents, no matter how talented Shao Chun was, he had no chance of winning. However, no one expected that under the siege of four Tang clan cultivators, not only was Shao Chun unscathed, he even killed a Tang clan cultivator with a single finger. Everyone was shocked by the scene before them. At this moment, the Tang clan cultivator leading the group finally realized Shao Chen's cultivation. A look of disbelief flashed across his eyes. When Shao Chun attacked, just now, the spiritual energy gushed out, which made the Tang clan cultivator leading the group feel that Shao Chun had already broken through to the Dao querying realm. Staring at Shao Chun in disbelief, the Tang clan cultivator leading the group could not help but exclaim, "You have broken through to the Dao querying realm?" It was no wonder that the Tang clan cultivator was so flustered. It was entirely because Shao Chen's improvement was too terrifying. Shao Chun was only in the Dao querying realm a month ago. However, after a month, Shao Chun had already broken through to the Dao querying realm. No one would be able to accept this. No one would believe such a speed of improvement if they did not witness it with their own eyes. After Shao Chen's cultivation was exposed, and he took the lead to kill a Tang clan cultivator at lightning speed, Shao Chen's eyes flashed with a cold light as he faced the remaining three Tang clan cultivators who were stunned on the spot. "I already said that you guys can't do anything to me. Scram!" After breaking through to the Dao querying realm and condensing the eight-edged Dao querying realm, Shao Chen's powerful strength gave him incomparable confidence. In the Dao querying realm, Shao Chun feared no one. It was precisely because of this incomparable confidence that Shao Chun did not put the Tang clan in his eyes. Of course, Shao Chun also had his reasons for not being afraid of the Tang clan. Just his identity as a direct disciple of Tian Fengshengzong was not something that the Tang clan could offend. Of course, Shao Chun still did not know of Tang Tianqing's existence, nor did he know that Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. It was precisely because of Tang Tianqing that the Tang clan dared to take revenge for Tang Tianbao. Otherwise, the Tang clan would not have dared to attack Shao Chun. As the cold shout fell, the three Tang clan cultivators looked at each other in dismay. No one had expected things to develop like this. Or rather, Shao Chun's strength had already reached such a terrifying level. Judging from the fact that Shao Chun had killed a Tang clan martial artist with a single strike, the four of them were indeed no match for Shao Chun. For a moment, the leading Tang clan martial artist was also curious. Shao Chun was only at the entry level of Dao Gate, Yet he already had such strength. How strong was the Tao gate that Xiao Chun had condensed? The Tao querying realm cultivators and above was directly related to their combat strength. As a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong, the Tao querying realm that Xiao Chun condensed when he broke through to the Tao querying realm would obviously not be too weak. At the very least, it would be at the level of a four-edged Tao querying realm, or even stronger. A hint of retreating gradually rose in his heart. After a moment of silence, the leading Tang clan cultivator said in a deep voice, "Let's go." They came aggressively, but left with their tails between their legs. Seeing the four Tang clan cultivators leave, Xiao Chun did not stop them. He found an inn in suppressing Wind City to stay. Although Xiao Chun was curious about the Tang clan, he did not take it to heart. At this moment, the best way for Xiao Chun to enter the ancient sacred sect was naturally through Tianfeng Xingzong. Just as Xiao Chun was thinking about his future plans in the Tang clan, although it was already late at night, the Tang clan was in a complete mess. Originally, they had sent 4 Tao querying realm guards to capture Xiao Chun. They thought that there would be no accidents, but no one arrived first. Not only did the 4 fail to capture Xiao Chun, but one of them was also killed by Xiao Chun. In the main hall of the Tang clan, Tang Ming sat on the main seat and looked at the 3 people below with anger. He shouted in a deep voice, "Xiao Chun broke through to the Tao querying realm? How is this possible? How could he break through to the Tao querying realm in just over a month?" Tang Ming was also extremely shocked by the news of Xiao Chun's breakthrough. As soon as he shouted, a young man wearing the ancient sacred sect's direct disciple uniform walked in with a faint smile on his face. He walked all the way to Tang Ming and said faintly, "Father, let your son do it personally tomorrow. I have a cold and fever, and I feel dizzy as if I've been stepped on by an elephant. I went for an injection this afternoon, and I insisted on writing another chapter. I really don't have the energy, so I will write 2 chapters today. I will write 2 more chapters when I get better. Sigh, it is really bad to not have a stockpile of chapters. Brothers, please forgive me. I really can't hold on any longer. In addition, the weather is cold." End of this chapter. Chapter 713. What had happened today had indeed shocked the Tang family. 4 Tao Gate Realm guards had gone to capture Xiao Chun, but one of them had been killed by Xiao Chun in the end. The other 3 could be said to have fled in panic. In less than 2 months, Xiao Chun's cultivation had broken through from the Tao Validation Realm to the Tao Querying Realm. Such an improvement had indeed exceeded everyone's expectations. Hearing Tang Tianqing's words, Tang Ming also looked at him. As the son he was most proud of, Tang Ming had high hopes for Tang Tianqing. Tang Tianqing had indeed not disappointed him. At least, Tang Tianqing had lived up to his reputation as the true dragon of the Tang family. Facing Tang Ming's gaze, Tang Tianqing appeared to be extremely shocked, even a little indifferent, compared to the ugly expressions of the others present. It was as if Tang Tianqing did not care about Xiao Chun's breakthrough at all. His eyes were filled with confidence. Compared to Tang Tianqing's confidence, Tang Ming was filled with worry. He said with a grave expression, "Tianqing, Xiao Chun, that little bastard, has already broken through to the Tao Gate realm. Will it be dangerous for you to take action personally? Why don't I send someone to kill him directly? Isn't he in the Tao Gate realm? I don't believe that he can defeat an elder of the Tang family if I send a few elders to take action." He was a little worried that Tang Tianqing would not be a match for Xiao Chun. After all, Tang Tianqing's cultivation was only at the initial Tao Gate realm. Although Tang Tianqing's combat strength was very strong and he had condensed the pentagons, Xiao Chun was clearly not an ordinary person. Therefore, Tang Ming did not want Tang Tianqing to take the risk personally. However, facing Tang Ming's worries, Tang Tianqing did not mind at all and smiled faintly. "Father, you don't have to worry. Killing Xiao Chun is just a piece of cake for me. Moreover, if you send someone else to kill Xiao Chun, it will be difficult to explain to Tianfeng Xingzong. It's better for me to do it personally." Tang Tianqing had absolute confidence in killing Xiao Chun. Moreover, Xiao Chun was a direct disciple of Tian Feng Shengzong. If he died while others were injured, Tian Feng Shengzong would pursue the matter. If Tang Tianqing took action, Tian Feng Shengzong would have nothing to say. Would Tian Feng Shengzong dare to go to the ancient saint sect to take action? The most suitable person to kill Xiao Chun was undoubtedly Tang Tianqing. Hearing his son's words, Tang Ming fell into silence. Tang Tianqing's words were not without reason. However, after experiencing today's events, Tang Ming was a little worried. What if Tang Tianqing was not Xiao Chen's match? After pondering for a while, Tang Ming finally looked at Tang Tianqing and asked solemnly, "Tianqing, are you really confident in killing Xiao Chun?" Tang Ming naturally did not want Tang Tianqing to take any more risks since one of his sons had already died. Facing Tang Ming's question, Tang Tianqing smiled and replied without thinking, "Father, don't worry. I will definitely kill Xiao Chun and avenge my younger brother." Tang Tianqing's words were full of confidence. Although Xiao Chun had broken through to the Dao Gate realm in just over a month, Tang Tianqing felt that Xiao Chun must have obtained some kind of opportunity in the Wind Plains. But even so, what could Xiao Chun do after breaking through to the Dao Gate realm? One had to know that Tang Tianqing was not an ordinary Dao Gate realm warrior. As a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect, Tang Tianqing's strength was obviously not something an ordinary warrior could compare with. Both of them were in the Dao Gate realm, and Tang Tianqing was in the initial stage of the Dao Gate realm. His cultivation was one stage higher than Xiao Chen's. Moreover, Xiao Chun was only a direct disciple of Tian Feng Shengzong, while Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. There was no reason for Tang Tianqing to lose to Xiao Chun. Tang Ming was full of confidence. Seeing this, Tang Ming finally nodded and said, "All right, but Tianqing, you must not be careless when dealing with Xiao Chun." Tang Ming reminded Tang Tianqing after promising him. Hearing this, Tang Tianqing nodded indifferently. Then, he walked out of the hall and sneered in his heart. "Xiao Chun, I'll personally take your life tomorrow. I'll let you know that my Tang family is not to be trifled with." Tang Tianqing wanted to deal with Xiao Chun personally. At the same time, the battle between Xiao Chun and the Tang family's guards was quickly spread throughout the wind-suppressing city. Some people even found out that the reason why the Tang family wanted to deal with Xiao Chun was because Xiao Chun had killed Tang Tianbao in the Wind Plains. For a moment, all the major families in the wind-suppressing city were secretly paying attention to the development of the situation. After all, the Tang family was one of the three major families in the wind-suppressing city. Every action of the Tang family had a great impact on the wind-suppressing city. The other two family heads and the city lord's mansion knew about the feud between the Tang family and Xiao Chun. At this moment, in the city lord's mansion, Saint Kuang Li was sitting in the study room. He smiled faintly as he looked at the deacon of the ancient saint sect in front of him. Xiao Chun has broken through to the Dao Gate realm. It seems like he has gained a lot from this trip to the Wind Plains. Yeah, but this matter between Xiao Chun and the Tang family is still a little troublesome. The Tang family will not let this matter rest. Do we need to step in? After knowing that Xiao Chun had killed Tang Tianbao, the Tang family would definitely not let this matter rest. Moreover, Tang Tianqing happened to be in the Tang family, which undoubtedly gave the Tang family a reason not to fear Xiao Chun. The deacon of the ancient saint sect asked if the city lord's mansion should step in to mediate the situation. After all, he knew that Saint Kuang Li had high hopes for Xiao Chun. However, Saint Kuang Li smiled. Tang Tianqing should be the one to take action tomorrow. After all, other than him, no one else in the Tang family can touch Xiao Chun. Let's wait and see how strong Xiao Chun is after breaking through to the Dao Gate realm. Saint Kuang Li had already guessed that the Tang family would send Tang Tianqing out tomorrow. He was curious about whether Xiao Chun would be a match for Tang Tianqing. Anyway, with the city lord's mansion around, nothing would happen to Xiao Chun. He was still unaware that the matter between him and the Tang family had already caused an uproar in the city. After a good night's sleep, Xiao Chun prepared to return to Tian Feng Shengzong the next day. After leaving the inn, Xiao Chun did not try to hide his whereabouts. He swaggered towards the teleportation array in Wind Suppression City. The Tang family naturally paid close attention to Xiao Chun's whereabouts. Therefore, as soon as Xiao Chun left the inn, the Tang family received the news. At the same time, Tang Tianqing also rushed towards the teleportation array in Wind Suppression City. Xiao Chun and Tang Tianqing unexpectedly met outside the teleportation array in Wind Suppression City. Tang Tianqing brought several elders of the Tang family. These elders were all at the Dao King realm, and one of them had even reached the Dao Emperor realm. Tang Tianqing blocked Xiao Chun's path and said indifferently, "Xiao Chun, do you think that the Tang family won't dare to do anything to you? How dare you act so brazenly after killing a member of my Tang family? Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a recommendation." End of chapter. Chapter 714. Tang Tianqing was wearing the uniform of a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Xiao Chen's face. He already understood where the Tang family's confidence came from. Logically speaking, there was only one explanation for the Tang family daring to make a move on him despite knowing that he was a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. That was that the Tang family had the confidence to not fear Tianjin Xingzong. Previously, Xiao Chen had been curious as to where a mere half-step saint family got the confidence to not fear the Heavenly Wind Holy Sect. However, after seeing Tang Tianqing today, Xiao Chen understood. Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect. This was the reason why Tang family dared to attack him. However, the Tang family clearly didn't suspect that Xiao Chen didn't choose to leave Zhenfeng City even though he knew that the Tang family was no longer afraid of his identity. This also meant that Xiao Chen also had his own backing. This backing had nothing to do with Tianjin Xingzong, because it came from the octagonal gate. Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. The ancient saint sect stood behind him. However, if Xiao Chen exposed the fact that he possessed the octagonal gate, what would the ancient saint sect do? The ancient saint sect had already begun to secretly pay attention to Xiao Chen. Now, not only had Xiao Chen broken through to the Dao Gate realm, but he had also condensed the octagonal gate. In this way, would the ancient saint sect allow something to happen to Xiao Chen? If nothing unexpected happened, once Xiao Chen's octagonal gate was exposed, the upper echelons of the ancient saint sect would definitely not sit idly by. The octagonal Dao Gate, or rather, his own talent, was Xiao Chen's greatest reliance. Between a person who had formed the octagonal Dao Gate and a personal disciple, it shouldn't be a difficult choice to make. Tang Tianqing obviously didn't know what Xiao Chen was thinking. Of course, Tang Tianqing had also completely underestimated the importance that the ancient saint sect attached to Xiao Chen. In Tang Tianqing's opinion, even if Xiao Chen had some talent, it was nothing compared to him. The ancient saint sect wouldn't blame him, a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect, for a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. He felt that Xiao Chen was relying on Tianfeng Xingzong. Therefore, Tang Tianqing came in person today to tell Xiao Chen that Tianfeng Xingzong was nothing. At least, they couldn't protect Xiao Chen. Facing Tang Tianqing's confident expression, Xiao Chen revealed a faint smile and said, "So this is what your Tang family is relying on as a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect. What? Do you still think that my Tang family doesn't dare to kill you?" Tang Tianqing didn't deny Xiao Chen's words. Instead, he sneered and replied. With Tang Tianqing's status, he naturally dared to kill Xiao Chen. Hearing his words, Xiao Chen didn't panic as expected. Instead, he smiled and said without any change in his expression, "Do you think you can kill me?" Since he had nothing to fear, Xiao Chen naturally didn't have anything to worry about. Moreover, it was rare to meet Tang Tianqing, a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect. Xiao Chen's cultivation had also broken through to the Dao Gate realm. To be honest, Xiao Chen also wanted to see how strong he was now, especially when compared to the pro-disciples of the ancient saint sect. It should be known that Xiao Qin's next goal was to become the prospective Holy Son. In this way, his strength would naturally surpass that of the pro-disciples of the ancient saint sect. Therefore, it was no exaggeration to say that Tang Tianqing was Xiao Qin's alchemy stone. Moreover, he was the most suitable alchemy stone. After he finished speaking, a battle intent slowly spread out from Xiao Qin's body. Feeling this battle intent, Tang Tianqing was stunned at first, but he quickly sneered and said, "What? You think you have the strength to contend with me after breaking through to the Tao Gate realm by luck? I'm not comparable to a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong." As he spoke, a wave of spiritual energy suddenly surged out from Tang Tianqing's body. This wave of spiritual energy was extremely pure and huge. Tang Tianqing could only be considered as the weakest among the pro-disciples of the ancient saint sect. However, if he was placed in Tianfeng Shengzong with his strength and talent, he could at least be ranked in the top 3. After all, even a number 1 pro-disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong, Wang Zong, would only be able to condense the Pentagate if he broke through to the Tao Gate realm, just like Tang Tianqing. In the heavenly wind sacred sect, the pentagonal Tao Gate was already a peak existence. However, in the ancient sacred sect, the pentagonal Tao Gate was merely at the threshold of a direct disciple. Only direct disciples who could form the 6-edged Tao Gate could be considered the true peak. Of course, if one wanted to reach the level of a holy son or a prospective holy son, the Pentagate should be the standard. A terrifying aura constantly spread out from Tang Tianqing's body. Sensing Tang Tianqing's terrifying spiritual energy, Xiao Qin wasn't nervous at all. On the contrary, the battle intent in his heart grew even stronger. The two of them stood facing each other. A great battle was about to break out. The surrounding cultivators all looked curiously at Xiao Qin and Tang Tianqing. As geniuses of the younger generation in the ancient saint state, the battle between Xiao Qin and Tang Tianqing was naturally very attractive. After a while, Tang Tianqing made the first move. All along, Xiao Qin's indifferent attitude had made Tang Tianqing furious. The storage ring on his hand flashed, and a long sword appeared in his hand. He fiercely stabbed out as he shouted coldly, "Xiao Qin Dai, today, I'll use your head to test my younger brother Tianbao. Come and take it if you have the ability. Let me see how strong a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect is." Hearing Tang Tianqing's words, Xiao Qin calmly replied. Then he unsheathed his ink dragon sword and stabbed out to meet Tang Tianqing's attack. Both of them were sword cultivators. When their swords were unsheathed, sword intent swept out. With a clang, the two long swords collided. The terrifying sword intent instantly tore the ground apart. It was a head-on collision. Surprisingly, Xiao Qin didn't fall into a disadvantageous position when facing Tang Tianqing. Originally, people thought that Tang Tianqing's strength should be able to suppress Xiao Qin. However, after the real battle, Xiao Qin didn't choose to dodge Tang Tianqing's attack. Instead, he chose to meet it head-on in the most direct way. In a head-on collision, Xiao Qin blocked Tang Tianqing's attack. Moreover, he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position at all. This shocked the surrounding people. One must know that Xiao Qin was only a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong, while Tang Tianqing was a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect. Although they were both pro-disciples, logically speaking, there should be an insurmountable gap between the two of them. After all, in terms of quality, a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect was definitely stronger than a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong. With just one attack, Xiao Qin gave everyone a pleasant surprise. Of course, the one who was most shocked was Tang Tianqing. Facing Xiao Qin personally, Tang Tianqing could clearly feel that the power of Xiao Qin's sword wasn't any weaker than his own. This made Tang Tianqing feel a mix of emotions. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 7:15. Tang Tianqing didn't hold back at all because he had attacked in anger. However, Xiao Chun didn't seem to be at a disadvantage when facing his full-powered attack. This shocked Tang Tianqing for a moment. Compared to Tang Tianqing's shock, Xiao Chun didn't think so much. After facing Tang Tianqing head-on, Xiao Chun felt that Tang Tianqing was too weak. Although Tang Tianqing's cultivation was at the initial success stage of the Dao Gate realm, Xiao Chun didn't feel too much pressure from Tang Tianqing's attack. Moreover, Xiao Chun's attack just now was just a casual attack. He didn't use his tempered battle body, nor did he fully activate his 8-edged Dao Gate. However, even so, Xiao Chun was still able to withstand Tang Tianqing's attack without too much pressure. Originally, Xiao Chun had some expectations for Tang Tianqing. After all, Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect. He thought that Tang Tianqing should be able to give him a good fight. However, the reality was that Tang Tianqing's strength disappointed Xiao Chun. With a faint disappointment in his heart, Xiao Chun said faintly, "If your strength is only like this, then it's too boring." Xiao Chun didn't hide the disappointment in his heart. His meaning was very clear. If Tang Tianqing hadn't hidden his strength before, then Xiao Chun had already lost interest in fighting with Tang Tianqing. Facing Xiao Chun's naked disappointment, Tang Tianqing only felt that he had been greatly insulted. What did this mean? Did Xiao Chun think that he was too weak? As a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Chun actually said that fighting with him was too boring. The anger in his heart suddenly rose like a volcanic eruption. Tang Tianqing stared at Xiao Chun as if his eyes were about to spit fire. Tang Tianqing gritted his teeth and said, "Xiao Chun, I want you to die." With this angry shout, Tang Tianqing directly used his killing move. A dark green flame burned on the blade of his sword. In an instant, the long sword in Tang Tianqing's hand turned into a flaming sword. Demonic flame annihilation. With an angry roar, Tang Tianqing slashed his sword at Xiao Chun. The terrifying dark green flame was like a fire dragon, fiercely attacking Xiao Chun. It was a heaven-class upper-grade martial skill. Tang Tianqing's demonic scorching kill was a heaven-class upper-grade martial skill. It could be said that this sword was Tang Tianqing's killing move. Obviously, Xiao Chun's words had angered Tang Tianqing, so he directly used his killing move. The flames that seemed to be able to incinerate everything rapidly rushed toward Xiao Chun. Everyone's expressions changed drastically at the sight of this. Although they were not directly facing Tang Tianqing, the might of Tang Tianqing's demonic flame annihilation was enough to make their scalps numb. Some of the Dao Transformation Realm and Dao King Realm martial artists couldn't help but exclaim, "I'm afraid no one in the Dao Gate Realm can block this sword." Other than the geniuses at the same level as Tang Tianqing, no one in the Dao Gate Realm could block this demonic flame annihilation. It was a very high evaluation. However, along with these people's exclamations, some people also realized that Xiao Chun had no intention of dodging Tang Tianqing's attack. Seeing that the demonic flame annihilation was getting closer and closer, Xiao Chun still stood on the same spot without any change in his expression. Is he not going to dodge? Could it be that Xiao Chun still wants to take Tang Tianqing's demonic flame annihilation head-on? Noticing Xiao Chun's actions, someone exclaimed in disbelief. Along with this person's words, everyone also looked at Xiao Chun. Some people were shocked, while others mocked at the same time. I think Xiao Chun is scared out of his wits. Someone mocked after being scared out of his wits by Tang Tianqing's demonic flame annihilation. However, no matter what the crowd said, Xiao Chun still had no intention of dodging. Noticing Xiao Chun's indifference, the anger in Tang Tianqing's eyes intensified. At the same time, a ferocious look flickered in his eyes as he shouted angrily, "Xiao Chun, die!" In Tang Tianqing's eyes, regardless of the reason why Xiao Chun didn't choose to dodge, the result was the same. Tang Tianqing wanted to kill Xiao Chun with a single sword strike. Under Tang Tianqing's furious roar, the demonic flame annihilation instantly engulfed Xiao Chun. The terrifying flame soared into the sky. The dark green flame seemed to have turned the surroundings into hell. The demonic flame that came from hell was burning everything in front of it. Such a terrifying power was enough to destroy everything in the surroundings. However, just as Tang Tianqing's flame completely erupted, an invisible power of law descended from the sky and completely isolated the space where the two of them were fighting. It was also because of the appearance of this power of law that the surrounding people and buildings weren't affected. The dark green demonic flame burned everything, and Xiao Qin's voice was also completely shrouded by the demonic flame. He couldn't see Xiao Qin's current situation at all, let alone know whether he was dead or alive. After being hit by the demonic flame annihilation head-on, many of the surrounding people shook their heads and sighed. Alas, what a pity. He actually took Tang Tianqing's demonic flame annihilation head-on. Even if he doesn't die, he will definitely be seriously injured. Yeah, I really don't know what Xiao Qin is thinking. Is he really scared out of his wits? Xiao Qin completely ignored Tang Tianqing's demonic flame annihilation head-on. In the eyes of the crowd, this was definitely the most unwise choice. Of course, no one knew that the reason why Xiao Qin didn't dodge was because Xiao Qin didn't feel any danger from Tang Tianqing's demonic flame annihilation. Since Tang Tianqing's killing move wasn't dangerous to him, why should Xiao Qin dodge it? No one saw that Xiao Qin's body was shrouded in a golden light under the dark green flames. This was the tempered battle body. His entire body wasn't hurt by the demonic flame annihilation at all. Not to mention his hands. Even the corners of his clothes weren't burned at all. It could be said that he wasn't hurt at all, standing in the flames of the demonic flame annihilation. Xiao Qin said disappointedly, "Is this the ancient Saint Sect's pro-disciple? He's really weak." Xiao Qin sighed at Tang Tianqing's weakness from the bottom of his heart. He originally thought that Tang Tianqing, who was a pro-disciple of the ancient Saint Sect, would at least be able to make him fight with all his might. But now, it seemed that Tang Tianqing didn't just let him down. He had completely overestimated him. In the face of Xiao Qin's sigh, Xiao Sheng's unfriendly voice sounded. "You brat, do you think the 8-edged Dao Gate is an ordinary thing? Tang Tianqing's Dao Gate should be at the 5-edge level, while yours is at the 8-edge level. The difference in cultivation between the two of you isn't that big. Your 8-edged Dao Gate is more than enough to crush him. Moreover, don't forget that you refine the heavenly spiritual pool to break through to the Dao Gate realm. You can completely crush this brat in any aspect. How can he threaten you this time? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation." End of chapter. Chapter 716. You little brat, do you really think that the octagonal Dao Gate is a piece of trash? Since it's the highest level of Dao Gate, it naturally has its heaven-defying aspects. If it has to spend so much effort to deal with a mere pentagonal Dao Gate, then the octagonal Dao Gate would be too trashy, Xiao Sheng said snappily in the face of Xiao Qin's lament. Ever since he had fought with Tang Tianqing, Xiao Qin had always felt that Tang Tianqing had disappointed him too much. However, Xiao Qin didn't know that it wasn't that Tang Tianqing was too weak, but that Xiao Qin was too strong. Firstly, the difference in cultivation between the two of them wasn't that great. Tang Tianqing was in the Dao Gate realm, so Xiao Qin's cultivation was only a small realm higher than Xiao Qin's. On the other hand, Xiao Qin possessed the octagonal Dao Gate, the tempered battle body, and the 20% of the heaven spiritual pool that he had refined. It could be said that Xiao Qin's strength had improved tremendously compared to a month ago. As for how terrifying this improvement was, Xiao Qin knew that he still hadn't adapted to the improvement in his strength over the past month. Deep in his heart, Xiao Qin still felt that a personal disciple like Tang Tianqing was an opponent worthy of being treated seriously. However, he didn't know that after this great opportunity, personal disciples were no longer worthy of being treated as opponents by Xiao Qin. Now, Xiao Qin truly had the qualifications to covet the lofty position of chosen saint. Right now, Xiao Qin was like a person who had been poor all his life and suddenly received a huge amount of wealth. However, deep in his heart, he still couldn't adapt and honestly felt that he was still a poor person. Of course, this wasn't Xiao Qin's fault. This was because Xiao Qin's improvement this time was too great, and the time was too short. It had only been a little over a month, so it was understandable that he hadn't adapted to the increase in his strength yet. After hearing Xiao Sheng's scolding, Xiao Chun also laughed self-deprecatingly. Yeah, why should I limit my sights to personal disciples? I've already decided to strive for the position of chosen saint. Tang Tianqing wasn't wrong. What was wrong was that Xiao Chun had too high of an expectation for him. What was wrong was that Xiao Chun had placed too much importance on Tang Tianqing. Now, Xiao Chun didn't need to set his sights on personal disciples. Instead, he needed to look at a higher level, those chosen saints and prospective chosen saints. Hearing Xiao Qin's words, Xiao Sheng smiled and said, "That's more like it. With your current strength, if you still want to bicker with the personal disciples, wouldn't you be bullying the weak if word got out? Go to the ancient sacred sect. For the time being, you are not qualified to be the son of saint, but you already have the strength to compete with the prospective son of saint. Get the position of the prospective son of saint first. As for the personal disciples, they are in front of you, and you don't need to worry too much." In the depths of the raging fire, Xiao Chun and Xiao Sheng chatted casually, as if they were having a casual conversation. After they finished speaking, Xiao Chun locked his eyes on the raging fire that enveloped him. Just as Xiao Chun completely lost interest in entangling with Tang Tianqing, more than 100 breaths had passed in the outside world. However, Xiao Chun, who was enveloped by the demonic flames, still didn't move. Just when everyone thought that Xiao Chun had been burned to death, there was suddenly a movement in the demonic flames. You're really lucky to be killed by my demonic flames," Tang Tianqing said faintly as he looked at the dark green flames in front of him. Just as he finished speaking, the demonic flames suddenly went berserk, as though they were being forcefully extinguished by some force. The demonic flames, which were originally monstrous, actually began to slowly dissipate at this moment. Furthermore, from the center of the demonic flames, the flames actually opened up a path. Looking along these separated demonic flames, one could clearly see that Xiao Chun, who was originally engulfed by the demonic flames, actually walked out slowly at this moment, unharmed. After being trapped in the demonic flames for more than 100 breaths, Xiao Chun's clothes didn't even have a trace of being burned, let alone being injured. Xiao Chun walked out of the demonic flames unscathed. As soon as Xiao Chun walked out of the encirclement of the demonic flames, the monstrous demonic flames quickly dissipated. They had been forcibly suppressed by Xiao Qin's terrifying spiritual power. Xiao Chun appeared in front of everyone again, but this time, the expressions on everyone's faces could be said to be extremely interesting when they saw him, especially Tang Tianqing. At this moment, he was already muttering to himself, as if he had seen a ghost. How is this possible? How can you be fine? How can my demonic flames annihilation be useless? Tang Tianqing couldn't believe the scene in front of him. In response, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "Nothing is impossible. I can only say that you're too weak. All right, I'm no longer interested in playing with you. Now, do you want to scram by yourself? Or do you want me to do it?" Xiao Chen's tone was extremely indifferent. Hearing this, Tang Tianqing was stunned for a moment. Then a sense of shame and indignation arose in his heart. He was completely humiliated by Xiao Chun. Driven by this sense of shame and indignation, Tang Tianqing recklessly attacked Xiao Chun. "Xiao Chun, I'll kill you." As if he had lost his mind, Tang Tianqing only felt that he had been repeatedly humiliated by Xiao Chun today. How could the proud Tang Tianqing endure this? He didn't care about anything else. He just wanted to kill Xiao Chun with his own hands. Looking at Tang Tianqing rushing towards him, Xiao Chun slowly pointed his finger with an indifferent expression. He directly displayed the Chun Jun sword finger. A golden sword ray flashed and instantly hit Tang Tianqing's right hand that was holding the sword. He felt a burst of pain, and the sword in his hand fell to the ground. Xiao Chun knocked away Tang Tianqing's sword with one finger. At the same time, he took a step forward and appeared in front of Tang Tianqing in an instant. He grabbed Tang Tianqing's neck and lifted him up. Tang Tianqing was lifted up like a chick in Xiao Chen's hand. No matter how hard Tang Tianqing struggled, he couldn't break free from Xiao Chen's grasp. Looking at this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. What's going on? What happened to the fierce battle? What happened to the battle between the personal disciples? How did Tang Tianqing get subdued by Xiao Chen in the blink of an eye? From the moment Xiao Chen appeared to subdue Tang Tianqing, he only used 2 moves. Facing Xiao Chen, Tang Tianqing simply couldn't retaliate at all. Everyone was shocked. But apart from them, there was another person who was also filled with shock. And that person was Saint Kuang Li, who had been hiding in the dark. Saint Kuang Li had been secretly watching the development of the situation. At this moment, he hid in the void and looked at Xiao Chen below with eyes full of astonishment. Tang Tianqing was a personal disciple of the ancient sage sect, but in the hands of Xiao Chen, he was pressed to the ground like an ant and repeatedly rubbed against him. This simply shocked Saint Kuang Li to the core. After recovering from the shock, Saint Kuang Li seemed to have thought of something all of a sudden. A glint flashed in his eyes, and he muttered to himself, Tang Tianqing condensed the Penagate, and Xiao Chen can crush Tang Tianqing. In that case, the Dao Gate condensed by Xiao Chen. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 717. From the beginning to the end, Saint Kuang Li had been paying attention to the battle between Xiao Chen and Tang Tianqing. After all, whether it was Xiao Chen or Tang Tianqing, Saint Kuang Li obviously didn't want anything to happen to them. Needless to say, Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect, so Saint Kuang Li naturally had to protect him. As for Xiao Chen, he naturally couldn't leave him alone because he had already caught the attention of the higher-ups of the ancient saint sect. In addition, the cause of the whole incident was Xiao Chen killing Tang Tianbao. To put it bluntly, in Saint Kuang Li's opinion, no matter how strong Xiao Chen was, killing Tang Tianbao was nothing at all. Originally, Saint Kuang Li was about to appear and mediate between the two when the battle was about to end. However, the result of the battle was far beyond his expectations. He already knew that Xiao Chen had broken through to the Dao Gate realm. Regarding this, Saint Kuang Li was indeed a little surprised. Even so, from the beginning to the end, Saint Kuang Li felt that even if Xiao Chen could defeat Tang Tianqing, it wouldn't be too easy. Firstly, Xiao Chen had just broken through to the Dao Gate realm. Secondly, Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. His battle strength wouldn't be too bad. That's right, unlike others, Saint Kuang Li was optimistic about Xiao Chen from the beginning. However, in his opinion, even if Xiao Chen won, it would be very difficult. He had always held this thought, but who would have thought that Xiao Chen would be so relaxed when facing Tang Tianqing? From the beginning to the end, Xiao Chen seemed to be playing around, suppressing Tang Tianqing so easily that he couldn't turn the situation around. Looking at the scene in front of him, Saint Kuang Li also had a bold guess in his heart. The strength of a Dao Gate realm cultivator, regardless of cultivation, was the most important factor. Tang Tianqing, on the other hand, had conjured a pentagonal gate of the way. Xiao Chen was able to suppress Tang Tianqing so easily despite being one level lower than Tang Tianqing. What level would Xiao Chen's gate of the way be? At the very least, one had to be at the level of the six-edged Dao Gate to be able to suppress Tang Tianqing so easily. As he thought like this in his heart, Saint Kuang Li sighed in his heart. However, at the same time, when they saw Tang Tianqing being captured with ease by Xiao Chen, the expressions of the 4 elders of the Tang clan who'd come with him immediately changed, and the Dao Emperor Realm Elder in the lead even shouted furiously, Xiao Chen, if you dare to hurt young Master Tianqing, the Tang family will tear you into pieces. Tang Tianbao had already been killed by Xiao Chen. If anything happened to Tang Tianqing, Tang Ming would probably go crazy. That was why the 4 elders were so nervous. However, Xiao Chen did not care about the threats of the 4 Tang family elders. He glanced at Tang Tianqing, who was in his hands like a dead dog. Xiao Chen said indifferently, dismember him into 1,000 pieces? Your Tang clan can give it a try, but I guarantee that this piece of trash will definitely be a step ahead of me before I die. Tang Tianqing's life was in his hands now, so Xiao Chun really didn't believe that the Tang clan would dare to fight to the death. Moreover, Xiao Chun firmly believed that St. Kuang Li would definitely not sit by idly. With so many layers of insurance, Xiao Chun didn't care at all even if he was facing 4 elders of the Tang clan. The 4 elders of the Tang clan were livid when they heard Xiao Chun, but they didn't dare move at all. What a joke! So long as Xiao Chun exerted a little force, Tang Tianqing's neck would be broken. They were Dao kings and Dao emperors, but they didn't dare guarantee that they would be able to save Tang Tianqing in such a short period of time. The battle ended as quickly as it started. Moreover, to everyone's surprise, what was supposed to be a shocking battle had completely turned into a one-sided crushing. That's right, it was a one-sided crushing. Xiao Chun had completely crushed Tang Tianqing. No one attacked again. Xiao Chun and the 4 elders of the Tang clan faced each other with swords drawn. It was also at this moment that St. Kuang Li's figure slowly appeared in the sky. He looked at the 4 elders of the Tang clan and snorted coldly. Humph. Does your Tang clan really not put me in your eyes? You actually dared to start a battle in Wind Suppression City. As soon as St. Kuang Li appeared, the first thing he said was to berate the Tang clan. Even though the 4 elders of the Tang clan were displeased, they naturally didn't dare to show it. They all bowed respectfully and admitted their mistakes. St. Kuang Li ignored the 4 elders of the Tang clan and landed directly in front of Xiao Chun. His words just now were just to express his attitude. He didn't appear for the Tang clan, but for Xiao Chun. Arriving in front of Xiao Chun, St. Kuang Li smiled and said amiably, "Boy, let him go. Don't worry. With me here, the Tang clan won't cause trouble for you in the future." Hearing St. Kuang Li's words, Xiao Chun didn't say anything. He casually threw Tang Tianqing to the side. Seeing this, the 4 elders of the Tang clan immediately stepped forward to check on Tang Tianqing's condition and then fed him healing pills. At this moment, be it Xiao Chun or St. Kuang Li, neither of them paid any attention to Tang Tianqing. However, Xiao Chun didn't expect St. Kuang Li to tap on Xiao Chen's forehead without any warning. It was apparent that St. Kuang Li was checking on Xiao Chen's body. Or perhaps, he was checking on Xiao Chen's Dao gate. St. Kuang Li's sudden action startled Xiao Chun. He wasn't afraid that the 8-edged Dao gate would be exposed. After all, Xiao Chun had no intention of hiding it. Xiao Chun was afraid of Xiao Chun. After all, Xiao Sheng was in his body right now. If St. Kuang Li were to find out, who knew what would happen? However, Xiao Chun had apparently underestimated Xiao Sheng. Under St. Kuang Li's investigation, he didn't detect Xiao Sheng's presence. Xiao Sheng wasn't exposed. At this moment, St. Kuang Li didn't have the time to care about this. Looking into Xiao Chen's body, St. Kuang Li's expression became incomparably interesting. St. Kuang Li initially guessed that Xiao Chen's Dao gate should be at the 6-edge or 7-edge level. But the truth was that St. Kuang Li found it hard to accept. Xiao Chen's Dao gate wasn't at the 6-edge or 7-edge level. Instead, it was the highest level, the 8-edge Dao gate. The 8-edge Dao gate was considered one of the best in the ancient sacred sect. One had to know that among the ancient sacred sect's holy sons, only one of them had condensed the 8-edge Dao gate. The rest of the holy sons were still at the 7-edge level. St. Kuang Li thought that he had overestimated Xiao Chun, but in fact, he had underestimated Xiao Chen's talent. While St. Kuang Li was in shock, Tang Tianqing, who had woken up, bellowed furiously. "Xiao Chun, I'm a personal disciple of the ancient sacred sect. If you dare to hurt me, the ancient sacred sect won't let you off. Sir Saint will definitely seek justice for me." Yesterday, the last chapter's title was wrong and couldn't be changed, but the main text didn't have any problems. I'm sorry, brothers, please forgive me. These 2 days, I've already been on a drip for 3 days in a row. It's really uncomfortable. Windless will adjust his state as soon as possible. I'll make up for the 2 chapters that I owe before. When I'm better, I'll erupt again. Chapter 718. Tang Tianqing, who had just woken up, shouted angrily. However, His words sounded ridiculous, especially in the ears of Saint Kuang Li. Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect, so he didn't put Shao Chun in his eyes at all. However, he didn't know that Shao Chun was a treasure in the eyes of Saint Kuang Li. What kind of concept was the octagonal Dao Gate? If there were no accidents, Shao Chun would definitely become the holy son of the ancient saint sect in the future. Moreover, as long as Shao Chun went to the ancient saint sect, he would definitely become the holy son. Even an idiot would be able to see the difference between a direct disciple and a holy son. It was ridiculous that Tang Tianqing was still shouting at the side. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even if Shao Chun killed Tang Tianqing, the ancient saint sect wouldn't say anything. Not to mention that the ancient saint sect had rules. That was bullshit. If a holy son killed a direct disciple, would the ancient saint sect execute him? Obviously, this was impossible. Rules were useless to some people, especially in the world of martial artists. This point was even more incisively and vividly displayed. In the face of Tang Tianqing's angry rebuke, Saint Kuang Li immediately shouted angrily, "Shut up." Saint Kuang Li was a saint of the ancient saint sect. Tang Tianqing's voice came to an abrupt halt, and he looked at Saint Kuang Li in confusion. Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect, while Shao Chun was only a direct disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong. However, why was Saint Kuang Li so protective of Shao Chun? Since Saint Kuang Li appeared, he hadn't even looked at Tang Tianqing. Instead, he was extremely concerned about Shao Chun. Why was he, Tang Tianqing, the direct disciple of the ancient saint sect? He did not understand why Saint Kuang Li was so protective of Shao Chun. However, what surprised Tang Tianqing even more was that, after a moment of shock, Saint Kuang Li calmed down and smiled at Shao Chun. Then he turned to Tang Tianqing and the 4 elders of the Tang family. You should be glad that nothing happened to Shao Chun today. If Shao Chun had lost a single strand of hair today, then your entire Tang family would be buried together with him. His voice was calm, but extremely cold. Hearing this, Tang Tianqing was stunned, and so were the 4 elders of the Tang family. What did that mean? Saint Kuang Li is on Shao Chun's side? How is this possible? The expressions of everyone from the Tang clan changed drastically. However, Saint Kuang Li paid no attention to their expressions at all. He gazed into the distance and shouted in a deep voice, "Tang Ming, how long are you going to watch? Do you really think that I don't dare to go to your Tang family?" Saint Kuang Li was not the only one who had been hiding in the dark. The head of the Tang family, Tang Tianqing's father, Tang Ming, had also been hiding in the dark. After all, Tang Tianqing was Tang Ming's only son. Naturally, Tang Ming was worried about him, so he had come personally just in case. Following Saint Kuang Li's angry shout, Tang Ming's figure slowly appeared in the sky. Although he was a sage-to-be expert, Tang Ming's attitude towards Saint Kuang Li was extremely respectful. He saluted Saint Kuang Li and called out, "Saint Kuang Li, Humph, I don't care what the reason is between your Tang family and Shao Chun. Stop it now," Saint Kuang Li said directly. Hearing this, Tang Tianqing was stunned. What was going on? How could Saint Kuang Li ask the Tang family to give up? Moreover, he didn't ask for the reason. It could even be said that he was being unreasonable. Tang Tianqing was puzzled and extremely unwilling at the same time. However, Tang Ming's face suddenly sank when he heard Saint Kuang Li's words. This was because at the same time, a voice transmission floated into Tang Ming's ears. Needless to say, this voice transmission was from Saint Kuang Li. Shao Chun will soon be promoted to the quasi-holy son of the ancient saint sect. Tang Ming, I think you should know the consequences of opposing a quasi-holy son. At that time, let alone Tang Tianqing's life in the ancient saint sect, it's hard to say whether your Tang family can survive. You should consider it carefully. Shao Chun will soon be promoted to the quasi-holy son of the ancient saint sect. Tang Ming was stunned by Saint Kuang Li's words. He naturally knew the consequences of opposing a quasi-holy son. If Shao Chun really became the quasi-holy son of the ancient saint sect, then it would be extremely easy for him to secretly kill Tang Tianqing in the ancient saint sect. After all, the quasi-holy son had real power in the ancient saint sect, just like the holy sons. Of course, his power wouldn't be as great as the holy sons. He kindly reminded Tang Ming. After a moment of silence, Tang Ming naturally knew what to do. She immediately came before Xiao Chun and respectfully apologized to him. It had to be said that Tang Ming was a flexible person. To be able to sit in the position of patriarch of the Tang family, he naturally wasn't an idiot. He knew when to submit and when to be unyielding. Since Tang Ming had admitted his mistake, the matter naturally came to an end. Whether Tang Tianqing was willing or not, at the very least, the Tang family wouldn't provoke Xiao Chun in the future. At the same time, Tang Ming would definitely repeatedly warn Tang Tianqing not to deal with Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun didn't care about Tang Ming's apology at all. Right now, Xiao Chun only wanted to enter the ancient saint sect. Saint Kuang-li already knew that he had condensed the octagonal Dao Gate, so he probably didn't need to go through Tian Fengsheng Zone. After all, from the looks of it, Saint Kuang-li couldn't wait to bring him back to the ancient saint sect. This was a good thing for Xiao Chun. However, before going to the ancient saint sect, Xiao Chun still planned to make a trip to Tian Fengsheng Zone. After all, Mu Feng and the others were still there, so it was only right for him to say goodbye. Just as Xiao Chun was thinking about this, Saint Kuang-li had already ordered Tang Ming and the others to leave. At this moment, Saint Kuang-li turned around and smiled at Xiao Chun. Haha, little guy, you really surprised this seat. Let's go. This seat will take you back to the ancient saint sect now. Just as Xiao Chun thought, Saint Kuang-li planned to take Xiao Chun back to the ancient saint sect as soon as possible. After all, the octagonal Dao Gate was a genius among geniuses. Xiao Chun naturally wouldn't refuse Saint Kuang-li's words. However, he still replied truthfully. Senior, disciple wants to go back to Tian Fengsheng Zone first before heading to the ancient saint sect. Facing Saint Kuang-li, Xiao Chun slowly replied. Hearing this, everyone's jaws dropped. As for Saint Kuang-li, he actually didn't get angry, nor did he refuse. Instead, he happily agreed. Not only did he agree to Xiao Chun's request, but he even planned to personally accompany Xiao Chun to Tian Fengsheng Zone. Haha, no problem, no problem. This seat happens to be free, so I'll accompany you to Tian Fengsheng Zone. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 719. Saint Kuang-li was obviously lying when he said that he was fine. As a saint and the city lord of suppressing Wind City, how could Saint Kuang-li be fine? Why would he accompany Xiao Chun to Tian Fengsheng Zone? Saint Kuang-li did this to protect Xiao Chun and safely escort him to the ancient sacred sect. This showed how much he valued Xiao Chun. Without waiting for Xiao Chun to reply, Saint Kuang-li laughed and led Xiao Chun into the teleportation array. In fact, Xiao Chun originally wanted to tell Saint Kuang-li that he would go to the ancient sacred sect after dealing with the matters in Tian Fengsheng Zone. Who would have thought that Saint Kuang-li would be so overbearing and insist on personally escorting him to the ancient sacred sect? Under Saint Kuang-li's lead, Xiao Chun and Saint Kuang-li's figures quickly disappeared into the teleportation array. Seeing this scene, the surrounding cultivators couldn't help but exclaim, "Am I seeing this right?" Saint Kuang-li actually personally escorted Xiao Chun to Tian Fengsheng Zone. Clearly, everyone was also shocked by Saint Kuang-li's actions. How much did he value Xiao Chun to personally accompany him to Tian Fengsheng Zone? The development of the matter was beyond everyone's expectations. Of course, it wouldn't be long before everyone present knew the answer. When Xiao Chun became the quasi-holy son of the ancient sacred sect through the teleportation array, Xiao Chun and Saint Kuang-li arrived at Tian Fengsheng Zone in the blink of an eye. When they walked out of the teleportation array, the Tian Fengsheng Zone elder who was in charge of guarding the teleportation array thought that it was only the disciples who had returned, but when he looked up, he saw Xiao Chun and Saint Kuang-li. Recognizing Saint Kuang-li at a glance, the elder shuddered and hurriedly got up before Saint Kuang-li. He respectfully said, "Lord Saint Kuang-li, what brings you here?" Saint Kuang-li's sudden appearance at Saint Tianfeng's place was naturally very strange. However, Saint Kuang-li didn't mind it at all. He waved his hand and smiled. Haha, I'm just taking a stroll. You don't have to worry about me. I'm going to find Brother Tianfeng for a drink. St. Kuang Li didn't tell anyone about Xiao Chun. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at Xiao Chun and smiled. Kid, you can go by yourself. When you're done, come find me at Brother Tianfeng's place. Since they had already arrived at Tianfeng Xingzong, it was clearly inappropriate for St. Kuang Li to follow Xiao Chun. Moreover, Xiao Chun probably didn't want a saint by his side all the time. In addition, there wouldn't be any problems in Tianfeng Xingzong, so St. Kuang Li prepared to leave and find St. Tianfeng. Hearing St. Kuang Li's words, Xiao Chun respectfully nodded and saw him off. After St. Kuang Li left, Xiao Chun stepped out of the teleportation array and walked back to his residence. This time, he came back mainly to say goodbye to Mu Feng, Wang Feng, Wang Zong, and a few other people he was familiar with. Since he was going to the ancient sacred sect, he naturally had to let them know. After returning to Tianfeng Xingzong for a little more than 2 months, Xiao Chun actually felt that things were still the same, but people had changed. Yes, 2 months ago, his strength was only at the level of one of the top 10 direct disciples. But now, it was no exaggeration to say that even Wang Zong was probably no match for Xiao Chun. And all of this was thanks to Xiao Sheng. It could be said that with Xiao Sheng by his side, Xiao Chen's martial path was like adding wings to a tiger. At the same time, St. Kuang Li appeared at the top of Tianfeng Mountain in St. Tianfeng's residence. As soon as he saw St. Tianfeng sitting cross-legged at the top of the mountain, St. Kuang Li's rough voice rang out. Haha, Brother Tianfeng, great news. St. Kuang Li's character was incomparably bold. Hearing this, St. Tianfeng slowly opened his eyes and said unhappily, Why didn't you guard Jinfeng City? Why did you come to Tianfeng Xingzong? Haha, isn't it because of great news? Brother Tianfeng, Xiao Chun has broken through to the Dao Gate realm. St. Kuang Li replied, Oh, Xiao Chun has broken through to the Dao Gate realm? Yes, and do you know what level the Dao Gate that kid condensed is? St. Kuang Li said excitedly. St. Tianfeng shook his head slightly, indicating that he didn't know. Seeing this, St. Kuang Li's eyes lit up and he laughed. Haha, let me tell you, Xiao Chun has condensed an octagonal Dao Gate. Octagonal Dao Gate. Hearing this, even St. Tianfeng revealed a strange expression. Obviously, he didn't expect Xiao Chun to be able to condense an octagonal Dao Gate. In addition to being shocked, St. Tianfeng also asked suspiciously, Are you sure? Of course, I've personally checked it. It's indeed an octagonal Dao Gate. Now that he was sure that Xiao Chun had condensed an octagonal Dao Gate, St. Tianfeng said indifferently, So you plan to bring him to the ancient saint's sect? That's right. That kid already has the cultivation of the Dao Gate realm, and has even condensed the 8-edged Dao Gate. It's only natural for him to go to the ancient sacred sect. After all, becoming the quasi-holy son will bring him great benefits. St. Tianfeng didn't hide anything from St. Tianfeng. St. Tianfeng didn't object to this and only sighed, The octagonal Dao Gate is indeed not bad, but Xiao Chen's cultivation is still a bit low. Can he pass the prospective saint's test? If he's given another year or 2, it'll probably be safer, right? If one wanted to become a prospective holy son of the ancient saint sect, it wasn't something that could be done just by having enough talent. One had to go through a test. Furthermore, the difficulty of the test wasn't low at all. After all, the ancient saint sect didn't wish for their prospective holy son to be an empty shell with nothing but talent. According to the normal process, Xiao Chun should wait another 2 years. At that time, his cultivation would have increased, and passing the prospective saint's test wouldn't be a problem. However, it was indeed a bit too rushed right now. St. Kuang Li laughed heartily when he heard St. Tianfeng's words. It's fine, it's fine. This kid will go to the ancient saint sect, no matter what. It's going to let him get used to it first. He'll to become the prospective saint in a year or 2 anyway. The 2 saints discussed Xiao Chun. At the same time, Xiao Chun returned to his residence. As soon as he entered, he saw that his 4 women were all bruised and battered. Clearly, they had just been beaten up. Their originally beautiful faces were now incomparably miserable because of their injuries. Seeing this scene, Xiao Qian's mood immediately turned bad and his face sank. Who did this? These injuries were definitely caused by someone. Faced with Xiao Qian's question, the four maids originally didn't want to say anything. However, they couldn't withstand Xiao Qian's interrogation and finally told Xiao Qian that it was Yi Teng. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 720. It turned out that not long after Xiao Qian went to Jinfeng City, Yi Teng returned to the sect. After learning that Xiao Qian had killed He Chuxuan, Yi Teng was burning with rage. He was even prepared to kill Xiao Qian in Jinfeng City. Unfortunately, Jinfeng City was under martial law at that time due to the wind ghost attack, so Yi Teng had no way to enter. Since he couldn't do anything to Xiao Qian, Yi Teng naturally shifted his anger to others. The disciples of the Tianqi sect and those related to Xiao Qian, including Xiao Qian's four maids, all suffered Yi Teng's revenge. Dozens of Tianqi sect disciples were even killed by Yi Teng. Seeing that Yi Teng was planning to kill everyone related to Xiao Qian at all costs, Wang Zong finally stepped in and made Yi Teng calm down a little. Of course, it was impossible for Wang Zong to protect the disciples of the Tianqi sect all the time. Therefore, for the past 2 months, the disciples of the Tianqi sect have been living extremely miserably in Tianfeng Zone. After telling Xiao Qian all of these things, the four girls still had worried expressions on their faces when they were done. Senior brother Xiao Qian, we're fine. Don't be impulsive. That's right. Senior brother Xiao Qian, don't be impulsive. As the saying goes, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later. It's never too late to deal with Yi Teng when senior brother's cultivation is successful in the future. The four girls were afraid that Xiao Qian would impulsively look for Yi Teng now, so they tried to persuade him. After all, Yi Teng was the third personal disciple and was very strong. Of course, the four girls didn't know that Yi Teng was in the past. The current Xiao Qian was even stronger than him. If it was 2 months ago, Xiao Qian might have been a little afraid of Yi Teng. But now, Yi Teng was simply a clown. He might even be inferior to Tang Tiancheng. With a sneer on his face, Xiao Qian said indifferently, "Isn't it never too late for a gentleman to take revenge 10 years later? Unfortunately, I'm not a gentleman. What I believe in is that revenge is never too late." After saying that, Xiao Qian didn't care about the four girls' persuasion and directly soared into the air. Seeing this, the four girls anxiously stood in the courtyard and stamped their feet. Standing in the air, Xiao Qian locked his eyes on Yi Teng's residence. Then, he pointed his finger and directly displayed the dragon's spring sword finger. A dragon shadow dragon roared and rushed toward Yi Teng's residence. A dragon's roar resounded, and a dragon image, a dragon roar. Hey! Such a huge commotion naturally attracted the attention of many people. The direct disciples and the core disciples nearby all turned their gazes to the sky. When they saw Xiao Qian's figure, everyone had a strange expression on their faces as they whispered softly, "This Xiao Qian is back." Residence 2. Destroyed. It's over. Is there going to be an all-out war? Over the past 2 months, Yi Teng has been madly retaliating against Xiao Qian. Now, as soon as Xiao Qian came back, he directly destroyed Yi Teng's house. This is really going to be an all-out war. Almost everyone knew that Yi Teng had been madly retaliating against Xiao Qian over the past 2 months. Now, Xiao Qian's actions were obviously in response to Yi Teng's actions. Faced with such a situation, the expressions of many disciples changed greatly. Was it going to be a war between the two direct disciples? Everyone was amazed, but most people were not optimistic about Xiao Qian. After all, Xiao Qian was ranked last among the top 10 direct disciples, while Yi Teng was ranked third. No matter how they looked at it, Yi Teng had a higher chance of winning. It could even be said that Xiao Qian had almost no chance of winning. However, what everyone did not expect was that after destroying Yi Teng's house with one finger, Xiao Qian's voice sounded. Under the spread of spiritual power, It almost spread throughout Tianfeng Zone. Yi Teng, get out here. As soon as Xiao Qin's words came out, everyone's jaws dropped. Whether it was the direct disciples, core disciples, or ordinary disciples, their expressions changed dramatically. Everyone thought that Xiao Qin was crazy, but only Xiao Qin knew that he was not crazy. He wanted to kill someone. Since entering Tianfeng Zone, Xiao Qin and the Iron Sword sect had been entangled with each other for several years. During this period, both sides had used various means. After being entangled for so long, coupled with Yi Teng's actions this time, Xiao Qin decided that he might as well settle it once and for all today. Therefore, Xiao Qin wanted to kill Yi Teng in front of many Tianfeng Zone disciples today. At this moment, Xiao Qin was incomparably domineering. He stood in the air, his black hair fluttering in the wind. As soon as Xiao Qin's voice fell, a terrifying spiritual power fluctuation soared into the sky. Then, Yi Teng, who was wearing a Tianfeng robe, appeared in front of Xiao Qin without anyone noticing. Yi Teng's eyes flashed with anger. Previously, Yi Teng was not in his house. Now that he saw Xiao Qin destroy his house and shamelessly ask him to get out, the killing intent in Yi Teng's heart rose to the extreme. The two stood facing each other, and the atmosphere instantly became tense. Facing Yi Teng, Xiao Qin finally saw through his cultivation. He was at the peak of the Tao validation realm. It was not Yi Teng's cultivation. At the same time, Yi Teng shouted coldly, "Xiao Qin, there was a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you barged into hell. I was worried that I couldn't find you, but you delivered yourself to me. Today, I want to see who can save you." Yi Teng had been looking for Xiao Qin. Now that Xiao Qin had finally shown up, Yi Teng naturally did not hide the killing intent in his heart. Hearing this, Xiao Qin sneered. "There is a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you barged into hell. Not bad, not bad. It's very suitable to describe your actions." Facing Yi Teng, Xiao Qin was fearless. Seeing this, Yi Teng was completely furious. With a roar, Yi Teng was about to attack, but at this moment a shout was heard. "Stop!" Along with this shout, Wang Zong's figure appeared between Xiao Qin and Yi Teng. Seeing Wang Zong's appearance, Yi Teng's face darkened. "Wang Zong, you still want to stop me?" During this period, Wang Zong had indeed stopped Yi Teng many times. However, in the face of Yi Teng's angry roar, Wang Zong did not pay attention to him at all. Instead, he looked at Xiao Qin as if to say, "Are you stupid? You know that Yi Teng wants to deal with you, but you delivered yourself to him." Wang Zong was a little speechless at Xiao Qin's action, but he still said, "Xiao Qin, you go first. I will help you stop Yi Teng. Don't do anything stupid." Wang Zong naturally did not think that Xiao Qin would be a match for Yi Teng. However, after hearing Wang Zong's words, Xiao Qin smiled slightly. "Senior brother Wang Zong, I know very well what I am doing." "You bastard, do you really know what you are doing?" Hearing this, Wang Zong anxiously scolded. Facing Wang Zong's anxiousness, Xiao Qin's smile did not diminish. "Of course, today, I will kill Yi Teng here. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation." Chapter 721. Today I'm going to kill Yi Teng, Xiao Qin said flatly. Wang Zong was stunned when he heard Xiao Qin's words. He wondered if Xiao Qin had lost his mind. Kill Yi Teng? Yi Teng's strength ranked third in Tianfeng Zone. Xiao Qin was no match for him. Of course, Wang Zong's understanding of Xiao Qin was still limited to 2 months ago. Moreover, even if Wang Zong knew that Xiao Qin had gone out to train for more than 2 months, he would never have thought that Xiao Qin would possess the strength to defeat Yi Teng in just 2 months. Because it was unrealistic. What could he do in 2 months? This was especially true after reaching the Tao confirmation realm. More than 2 months was just the time it took to enter seclusion. Of course, how could Wang Zong know what kind of great opportunity Xiao Qin had obtained in the past 2 months in the Wind Plain? This great opportunity was comparable to 10 years of bitter cultivation for Xiao Qin. This was the horror of opportunities. A heaven-defying opportunity was enough to make one soar to the sky. Such things were common in the world of martial artists. Wang Zong couldn't understand Xiao Chun. Yi Teng, who was standing at the side, burst into laughter after a brief moment of shock. His laughter was full of contempt. At the same time, he looked at Xiao Chun as if he was looking at an idiot. "Ah, what did you say? You want to kill me? Haha, funny, really funny. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life." Yi Teng clutched his stomach and laughed. Xiao Chun said that he wanted to kill him here. This made Yi Teng so angry that he laughed. How dare an ant say that he wanted to kill him? His laughter was filled with disdain and mockery. However, before Yi Teng could finish his words, his laughter stopped abruptly. This was because Xiao Chun had appeared in front of him without him noticing. He grabbed Yi Teng by the neck and lifted him up. They didn't see how Xiao Chun moved. Yi Teng didn't see it, and neither did Wang Zong. When they came back to their senses, Xiao Chun had lifted Yi Teng up like a chicken. Yi Teng was like a duck that had been grabbed by the neck. A second ago, he was mocking Xiao Chun. Now, there was only deep shock and disbelief in his eyes. Yi Teng was not the only one who was shocked. Wang Zong and the other personal disciples were shocked as well. They never thought that Xiao Chun would be able to subdue Yi Teng so easily. Yi Teng did not even have a chance to react. Under countless shocked gazes, Xiao Chun sneered and said, "Do you think it's funny? I think it's just a normal thing because if I want to kill you, it's as easy as killing an ant. Just like now." After saying that, Xiao Chun threw a punch at Yi Teng's abdomen. Yi Teng spat out a mouthful of blood from the pain. After the punch landed, Xiao Chun exclaimed softly, "You're not crippled? Not bad, but so what? If one punch doesn't work, then two. If two punches don't work, then three. Let's see how many punches your Dantian can take." With the previous punch, Xiao Chun was prepared to cripple Yi Teng's cultivation. However, to Xiao Chun's surprise, Yi Teng's Dantian didn't shatter under the punch. Yi Teng was indeed a personal disciple. The hardness of his Dantian couldn't be compared with that of an ordinary person. But so what? It didn't matter at all. After saying that, Xiao Chun clenched his fist again. Seeing this, Yi Teng's eyes finally showed a touch of fear. Without thinking much, he immediately struggled with all his might and shouted, "Xiao Chun, how dare you? Stop, stop." Yi Teng struggled with all his might, but it was all in vain. Xiao Chun's fist arrived as expected. With a bang, it landed on Yi Teng's abdomen again. Yi Teng spat out another mouthful of blood. However, it wasn't over yet. After the punch landed, Xiao Chun didn't stop. His fist continued to land on Yi Teng's abdomen like raindrops. Bang, bang, bang. A total of 8 punches sounded. After 8 punches in a row, Yi Teng only heard a muffled bang in his body. His Dantian was directly shattered. After his Dantian was forcefully blasted apart, Yi Teng's aura quickly withered. His face also instantly became as pale as paper. The numerous disciples who had witnessed the entire process by the side could not help but gulp down large mouthfuls of saliva. Crippled, Yi Teng, who ranked third among the top 10 personal disciples, was crippled by Xiao Chun just like that. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Everyone, including Wang Zong, couldn't believe the scene in front of them. How could this be? It was too exaggerated. From the beginning to the end, Yi Teng didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. Just like that, Xiao Chun used the most violent and barbaric method to destroy his Dantian and cripple his cultivation. Without his cultivation, Yi Teng's aura weakened as he looked at Xiao Chun and said with difficulty, Xiao Chun, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Everything happened in the blink of an eye." Yi Teng was already in the grasp of Xiao Chun like a dead dog. Hearing Yi Teng's weak voice, Xiao Chun said expressionlessly, "Become a ghost? We'll talk about it when you can." After saying that, Xiao Chun waved his hand and threw Yi Teng's body into the air. Then, in front of everyone, Xiao Chun pointed his finger and used the Tai sword finger. A thick beam of spiritual energy shot out and immediately engulfed Yi Teng. Yi Teng didn't even have time to scream. When the light of the Tai sword finger dissipated, Yi Teng's body had already disappeared. Since they couldn't see Yi Teng, The crowd naturally didn't think that Yi Tung had dodged Xiao Chen's attack. Even his cultivation had been crippled. At this moment, there wasn't even a trace of him left behind. Silence. Following Yi Tung's death, the entire Tianfeng Shengzong fell into a strange silence. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the figure in the sky. Facing the third direct disciple, Yi Tung had been directly killed. What kind of concept was that? After more than 2 months, Xiao Chun had actually grown to such a level. Killing Yi Tung was as easy as slaughtering a chicken. Looking at Xiao Chen's back, Wang Zong was also shocked. From the methods Xiao Chun had just displayed, perhaps even he wouldn't be much better than Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun, you. Wang Zong was completely stunned. Wang Zong stammered as he was completely shocked by what he saw. Hearing this, Xiao Chun turned around and quickly retracted his aura. He had returned to his usual amiable and approachable self. He said with a smile on his face, "What's wrong, senior brother Wang Zong? I didn't do anything stupid, right?" No. Hearing Xiao Chen's joke, Wang Zong instinctively nodded. What a joke. Xiao Chen did something stupid. How could that be possible? Yiding was simply acting recklessly. However, Xiao Chen's improvement was really hard to accept. Wasn't this just like the saying, a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes? Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 722. As the third-ranked direct disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong, Yi Tung was killed by Xiao Chun, just like that. The surrounding disciples were dumbfounded, especially the disciples of the Iron Sword sect. Their faces were filled with horror. That was Yi Tung, but now he was squashed to death by Xiao Chun like an ant. Wang Zong joked with Wang Zong. After nodding awkwardly in response, Wang Zong said worriedly, "Xiao Chun, you killed Yi Tung just like that. If the sect blames you..." At this point, even if Wang Zong couldn't figure it out, Yi Tung's death was a fact. Killing a fellow disciple in the sect, and a direct disciple at that, was no joke. If the sect's higher-ups blamed him, Xiao Chen's outcome would be, he wanted to say that Xiao Chun was in big trouble, but when the words came to his mouth, Wang Zong didn't know how to say it. He could only remind Xiao Chun tactfully. Perhaps it was because Xiao Chen's method of killing Yi Tung was too brutal, or perhaps it was because Xiao Chen's strength had improved, but Wang Zong couldn't help but feel a little nervous when facing Xiao Chun at this moment. He could say whatever he wanted before, but now he couldn't. Perhaps this was what people often said, strength represented distance. In short, in front of Xiao Chun, Wang Zong had unconsciously brought a touch of respect. Knowing what Wang Zong was worried about, Xiao Chun didn't care about it. He had only killed Yi Tung, and things weren't over yet. He had said that he would uproot the Iron Sword sect today. How could he just kill Yi Tung? Xiao Chun didn't want to see such a thing happen again. He still had many friends in Tianfeng Shengzong. He didn't want to see them being bullied again. Moreover, Xiao Chun was about to go to the ancient sacred sect. Whether he would have a chance to come to Tianfeng Shengzong in the future was another matter. Therefore, Xiao Chun planned to settle everything today. His gaze shifted to the core disciple area. There were many core disciples in the Iron Sword sect. They were all involved in bullying the disciples of the Celestial Equal sect. The killing intent in Wang Zong's eyes once again gathered. Sensing the change in Xiao Chun, Wang Zong's gaze also looked towards the core disciple area. Suddenly realizing something, Wang Zong asked somewhat uncertainly, "Xiao Chun, you're not serious, are you?" They had already guessed what Xiao Chun was going to do next, but it was too shocking. How could Xiao Chun do this? Killing Yi Tung was already a big mistake. If Xiao Chun continued to attack, then Wang Zong didn't dare to continue thinking about it. Although Wang Zong thought that he was also a person who didn't have any taboos, compared to Xiao Chun, it was simply insignificant. Wang Zong didn't dare to think about what Xiao Chun might do next. Wang Zong's face was filled with horror. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "Today is the day to settle everything. How can one eating be enough?" Having said that, Xiao Chun took a step forward, and his figure instantly appeared above the core disciple area. His gaze swept across the core disciples of the Iron Sword sect. Without hesitation, Xiao Chun pointed his finger and immediately displayed the Chun Jun sword finger. A golden sword ray flashed. While everyone was still in a daze, the golden sword ray suddenly pierced through a core disciple of the Iron Sword sect. Another person was killed. Following the death of this core disciple from the Iron Sword sect, the minds of the surrounding disciples, who were still in a state of shock, went blank. What's going on? Why won't he stop after killing Yi Tong? Could it be that Xiao Chun intends to kill all the disciples of the Iron Sword sect? One had to know that there were thousands of disciples of the Iron Sword sect. Some people had already guessed Xiao Chen's thoughts. In response, everyone was shocked. Was he going to massacre Tianfeng Shengzong? As if to confirm the disciples' guesses, after killing a core disciple, Xiao Chun said faintly, "Disciples of the Iron Sword sect who are above the Tao querying realm die." He clearly stated what he was going to do next. Kill all the disciples of the Iron Sword sect who were above the Tao querying realm. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire Tianfeng Shengzong was in an uproar. If what Xiao Chun said was true, how many disciples of the Iron Sword sect would die? It shouldn't be less than 1,000, right? Crazy, absolutely crazy. Hearing this, everyone thought that Xiao Chun must be crazy. If he did this, Tianfeng Shengzong would definitely not let him go, even if he was a direct disciple. The disciples thought that Xiao Chun must be crazy. However, in the next second, Xiao Chun had already begun to act. The Chun Jun sword finger was constantly used. Rays of golden sword light constantly fell from the sky, shooting towards the disciples of the Iron Sword sect. In the face of Xiao Chen's attack, the core disciples had no ability to resist at all. Not long after, 5 core disciples of the Iron Sword sect were killed. It was a completely one-sided massacre. Facing the scene in front of them, everyone was stunned. By the time they came back to their senses, Xiao Chun had already killed all the core disciples of the Iron Sword sect. At this time, Xiao Chun had already gone to the ordinary disciple area. Unsurprisingly, with the arrival of Xiao Chun, the ordinary disciple area was naturally set off a bloody storm. All the disciples of the Iron Sword sect whose cultivation was above the Tao querying realm were found and killed one by one. In the face of Xiao Chen's merciless massacre, the disciples of the Iron Sword sect were completely scared out of their wits. One by one, they fled frantically. They were scared, really scared. They thought that the sect was the safest place, but now, Tianfeng Shengzong had become a nightmare in their hearts. The disciples of the Iron Sword sect were scared out of their wits. On the other hand, the disciples of the Celestial Equal sect were extremely excited. Without needing Xiao Chun to say anything, everyone had already spontaneously organized themselves to block the disciples of the Iron Sword sect who were fleeing in all directions. Compared to the disciples of the Iron Sword sect and the Celestial Equal sect, the disciples of the other sects were only in shock. Xiao Chun didn't attack them, so they weren't in any danger. However, everything that happened today had indeed subverted the knowledge of all the disciples. There was actually someone who dared to start a massacre in Tianfeng Shengzong. Amidst the shock, some disciples suddenly reacted. Xiao Chun was already in such a state, but why hadn't the elders appeared yet? Where are the elders? Why haven't they appeared? Could it be that the higher-ups have tacitly approved of senior brother Xiao Chen's actions? It had been so long, but not a single elder of Tianfeng Shengzong had appeared. While the disciples were wondering, all the half-sage elders gathered in the main hall of Tianfeng Shengzong. At this moment, the elder in charge of the disciplinary hall, Yin Xing, was angrily looking at Yifeng and questioning him coldly. Yifeng, what do you mean by this? Why aren't you allowing the disciplinary hall to take action? Xiao Chun wantonly killed people in the sect. Why are you doing this? Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 723. It was not that the elders did not know what had happened in the sect, but they had all gathered in the main hall after receiving Yifeng's summons. As the elder in charge of punishment, Yin Xing was naturally duty-bound to punish Xiao Chun for killing so many people in the sect. Furthermore, Yin Xing was an extremely stubborn old man. Therefore, he was furious when He Feng refused to take action for a long time. He didn't care that He Feng was the great elder and questioned him directly. In the face of Yin Xing's cold questioning, He Feng did not argue with him. He knew this old man's character very well. He Feng knew that if he didn't give him an explanation, the old man might really hit him. Left with no choice, He Feng could only tell the truth. This is the Lord's order. Old man Yin, if you have any dissatisfaction, you can ask him yourself when he comes. He Feng wasn't lying. It was indeed the Tianfeng Saint's idea to gather all the elders and ignore Xiao Chun. As for the reason, it was very simple. It was because he couldn't punish Xiao Chun. There was no other way. Xiao Chun was no longer a disciple of the Tianfeng Shengzong, but a disciple of the ancient sacred sect. How could the Tianfeng Shengzong punish Xiao Chun? In fact, the Tianfeng Saint had already noticed when Xiao Chun killed Yi Teng. After asking He Feng, he found out that Xiao Chun wanted to take revenge. The Tianfeng Saint didn't pay much attention to Yi Teng's actions in the past 2 months. What a joke. Of course, he wouldn't care about such trivial matters. Knowing that Xiao Chun wanted to take revenge, the Tianfeng Saint quickly decided to let Xiao Chun do whatever he wanted. Yi Teng could only blame himself for provoking Xiao Chun. In any place, there were always some people who were above the rules. The rules could not restrain them, and Xiao Chun clearly belonged to this group of people. Tianfeng Saint didn't intend to pursue the matter with Xiao Chun. Of course, Xiao Chun couldn't kill the innocent. Tianfeng Saint chose to turn a blind eye to Yi Teng's actions. After all, it wasn't difficult to choose between Xiao Chun and Yi Teng. Xiao Chun was also very smart. He did not cross the Tianfeng Saint's bottom line. Even when facing the disciples of the Iron Sword sect, Xiao Chun did not choose to kill them all. He only killed those who were a threat. As for the others, even if they held a grudge against him, they would not be able to do anything to him or the people around him in the future. It could be said that Xiao Chun and the Tianfeng Saint had a tacit understanding. Xiao Chun knew that the Tianfeng Saint would not blame him. He also knew the severity of the matter. As time passed, the elders of Tianfeng Shengzong only appeared after Xiao Chun killed all the disciples of the Iron Sword sect who were above the Dao querying realm. They were led by He Feng. After massacring hundreds of people, the disciples of the Heavenly Wind Saints sect greeted the elders one after another as they waited anxiously for the elders to speak. Obviously, the elders had appeared to judge Xiao Chun. Since he dared to kill so many disciples of the same sect, Xiao Chun was definitely going to die. Many disciples thought so. Under everyone's gaze, Xiao Chun calmly walked in front of He Feng and the other elders. Facing Xiao Chun, Yin Xing shouted angrily, "Xiao Chun, you're really out of control. I really want to cripple you with my own hands." Yin Xing was obviously furious at Xiao Chun's actions. However, from his words, it was obvious that the Tianfeng Saint had already made his decision. This decision made Yin Xing feel helpless because he was destined to not be able to punish Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun ignored Yin Xing. He had dealt with him before and knew that this old man was a stubborn old man. It was useless to say anything to him. He looked directly at He Feng and waited for him to speak. Xiao Chun had already predicted the outcome before he made his move. This was definitely not Xiao Chun's impulsive action. After all, Xiao Chun was not stupid enough to perish together with Yi Teng just for Yi Teng. It was because he was not afraid of the rules of Tianfeng Shengzong that Xiao Chun dared to do this. Facing Xiao Chun's stare and seeing how calm he was, He Feng smiled bitterly in his heart. This kid was absolutely fearless from the very beginning. He knew that Tianfeng Saint would not do anything to him. He had to admit that this brat was very smart and knew his limits. At the very least, when the Tianfeng Saint knew the outcome, he was not angry at all. On the contrary, he smiled with satisfaction. "Xiao Chun, this brat is not bad. He knows his limits. He Feng, go and settle this matter." This was what the Tianfeng Saint said to He Feng. Obviously, the Tianfeng Saint was not angry at Xiao Chun's actions. On the contrary, he was very happy. If others knew about this, they would probably think that the Tianfeng saint was crazy. Xiao Chun had brazenly killed a fellow disciple in the sect, and the Tianfeng saint actually praised him. When he thought about how the Tianfeng saint dealt with Xiao Chun, even Yifeng found it hard to believe. The Tianfeng saint had only expelled Xiao Chun from the sect. What a joke. That was enough to kill him several times, but the Tianfeng saint had only expelled Xiao Chun from the sect. Moreover, Yifeng knew very well that being expelled from Tianfeng Shengzong meant nothing to Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun could no longer be considered a disciple of Tianfeng Shengzong, because Xiao Chun would soon enter the ancient sage sect. Yifeng sighed and announced the heavenly wind saint's punishment in a loud voice. Cough! Xiao Chun killed a fellow disciple. Since it was pardonable, he has been expelled from Tianfeng Shengzong as punishment. With a light cough, Yifeng's voice resounded in every corner of the heavenly wind sacred sect. Hearing this, many disciples were stunned once again, and some even whispered, "Expelled from the heavenly wind sacred sect? That's it." At first, the disciples thought that Yifeng had not finished speaking, but after staring at him for a while, they did not wait for him to continue. It seemed that Xiao Qin's punishment was indeed expulsion from Tianfeng Shengzong. But how was that possible? Killing a fellow disciple was already a capital offense. Needless to say, Xiao Chun had killed hundreds of people. According to the sect's rules, Xiao Chun would have been sentenced to death 100 times over. Just a sentence of being expelled from the sect was enough to cover up the matter. Was this really a F***king punishment? No matter how one looked at it, it was the Tianfeng saint who was protecting Xiao Chun. No one thought that the Tianfeng saint would give Xiao Chun such a light punishment. It could even be said that it was not painful at all. Facing the doubts of the disciples, Yifeng did not explain too much. He only looked at Xiao Chun and scolded him in a low voice. "You little brat, you really don't know how to make people worry. All right, say goodbye to everyone today. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, and you can follow the Tianfeng saint to the ancient sage sect. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." Chapter 724. Yifeng and the other half-saint elders already knew that Xiao Chun had broken through to the Tao Gate realm and would be heading to the ancient saint sect soon. Because of this, the elders were not surprised by the Tianfeng saint's decision. It was indeed reasonable. Even the stubborn Yin Xing accepted this outcome, even though he was unhappy. Of course, such a result could only happen to Xiao Chun. If there was anyone who felt that they could imitate Xiao Chun and harm their own disciples in the future, then what awaited them would most likely be severe punishment from the disciplinary hall. If one did not have the strength to transcend the rules, it was best to follow the rules obediently. Otherwise, it would only be playing with fire. Hearing Yifeng's words, Xiao Chun bowed respectfully and said, "Thank you, First Elder. No need to thank me. Anyway, you won't be able to trouble me in the future. All right, go. Remember, don't cause any more trouble." Yifeng scolded Xiao Chun with a smile and then left with the elders. As for the aftermath, it would naturally be taken care of by the deacon of Tianfeng Shengzong. Xiao Chun did not need to worry about it. In short, what seemed to be an earth-shattering event was left unsettled in the end. The result was that Xiao Chun was expelled from Tianfeng Shengzong. This was absolutely shocking. Without a doubt, this was the first time in the history of Tianfeng Shengzong. Xiao Chun had killed hundreds of his fellow disciples, but he was not punished at all. Xiao Chun did not care about the astonishment and thoughts of the disciples. After all, he was going to leave tomorrow. After returning to his residence and comforting the four girls, Xiao Chun planned to gather his close friends and have a meal at the Cool Breeze restaurant. It could also be considered a farewell. However, before Xiao Chun could order people to invite them, they had already taken the initiative to come to his residence. Wang Zong was the first to arrive with Wang Fong. Then, Mu Feng, Nangong Yin, and the others came one after another to Xiao Chun's residence. Looking at Xiao Chun, Wang Fong, and Nangong Yin looked as if they were looking at something new. They stared at Xiao Chun for a long time without saying a word. Xiao Chan felt a little uncomfortable being stared at by the two girls. Finally, he asked with a smile, "What's wrong with you guys? Don't you recognize me?" "No. We were just wondering if you were the Lord's illegitimate son. How could it be so simple? I thought you were dead this time." Wang Fong replied after hearing Xiao Chen's words with a smile. "That's right, Xiao Chen. I really can't see through you now that you've returned. Let's not talk about your combat strength. After causing such a huge mess, you were only expelled from the sect. Really, if it were me, I'm afraid that I would have already been sent to the little black room in the punishment hall." Wang Zong chimed in as Wang Fong's voice faded. What happened today was really unexpected. In response, Xiao Chun shook his head with a smile. He wanted to say that when you become the prospective holy son of the ancient saint sect, you can do it too. However, Xiao Chun did not say it out loud in the end. After joking around for a while, Nangong Yin was the first to stop smiling. She said with some reluctance, "But although he's not, Xiao Chun will be kicked out of Tianfeng Shengzong in the future." Hearing Nangong Yan's words, everyone's expression became serious. Indeed, Xiao Chun had been kicked out of Tianfeng Shengzong, which meant that he would be leaving soon. Everyone was a little disappointed. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and comforted them. "Don't worry, I'm indeed leaving Tianfeng Shengzong, but I'm not homeless. This time, I plan to go to the ancient saint sect, and the Lord has agreed to it." Xiao Chun told everyone that he was going to the ancient saint sect. Of course, he did not say that he was going to the ancient saint sect to participate in the prospective Holy Son assessment. After all, the prospective Holy Son assessment was indeed a little scary. Hearing Xiao Chen's explanation, Wang Fong was the first to react. She said, "Well, so you and the Lord have already discussed it. That's why the Lord wants to kick you out of the ancient saint sect. In this case, the punishment will not hurt you at all. After all, if you enter the ancient saint sect, it means that you're leaving Tianfeng Shengzong." After knowing that Xiao Chun was going to the ancient saint sect, everyone realized that the punishment given to Xiao Chun by Tianfeng Saint was absolutely meaningless. Some people were jealous of Tianfeng Saint's preference for Xiao Chun. Of course, they were more happy for Xiao Chun. In this way, everyone was happy. Because they were going to leave tomorrow, everyone went to the Cool Breeze restaurant to have a big meal. In the future, they would no longer be disciples of Tianfeng Shengzong, so it was useless to keep the contribution points. After the meal, Xiao Chun gave all his contribution points to Mu Feng. After all, Mu Feng still needed to cultivate in Tianfeng Shengzong. These contribution points were obviously of great help to him. After a hearty drinking session, although everyone was reluctant to leave, there was no such thing as an eternal banquet. After leaving the Cool Breeze restaurant, everyone said goodbye to Xiao Chun one by one. "Brother Xiao Chun, be careful when you go to the ancient saint sect." Mu Feng said, "Xiao Chun, be careful when you go to the ancient saint sect. When my brother and I go to the ancient saint sect, you have to take care of us." Wang Fong said, "Xiao Chun, I will also go to the ancient saint sect. At that time, you have to protect me too." Nangong Yin said, "See you at the ancient saint sect." Wang Zong said, everyone said goodbye to Xiao Chun one by one. In the end, Xiao Chun also smiled and nodded. "Well, see you at the ancient saint sect. When you come, I will definitely treat you to the best wine in the entire ancient saint state." "Then it's a promise?" "Yes, it's a promise." After bidding farewell to everyone, Xiao Chun returned to his residence. As soon as he entered, Xiao Chen's 4 maidservants came to greet him. They took Xiao Chen's coat and poured tea for Xiao Chun. Although they were serving Xiao Chun as usual, Xiao Chun could clearly sense the dejection in their hearts. Xiao Chun asked with a smile, "What are you waiting for? What's wrong? Why you all look so down?" When they heard Xiao Chen's words, the 4 maidservants' eyes turned red and they choked with sobs. We just thought that young master is going to the ancient saint sect tomorrow. And the 4 of them were maidservants who had followed Xiao Chun ever since Xiao Chun joined the Tianfeng Shengzong. Now that Xiao Chun was leaving, it was easy to imagine their fates. There were only 2 paths. They could either become ordinary disciples of the Tianfeng Shengzong, or be assigned to other personal disciples as maidservants. But to them, neither path was what they wanted. In their hearts, they wanted to follow Xiao Chun more. Xiao Chun was approachable and never treated them as servants. Moreover, Xiao Chun was handsome and dashing. The four maidservants had long fallen in love with him. They did not ask for anything else. They just wanted to be by Xiao Chen's side and be his maidservants. That was enough. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. If you want to chat about Sword Master of 8 Desolations with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find friends. Chapter 725. The four women were all in low spirits, and their eyes were slightly red. Their watery eyes looked like they were about to burst into tears. Xiao Chen naturally knew what the four women were thinking when he saw their expressions. He called out their names one by one in a gentle voice. Fei Mei, Enlan, Lu Zhu, Si Zhu. What's wrong? Don't you want to go to the ancient sacred sect with me? Fei Mei and the others didn't react at first when they heard Xiao Chen call out their names one by one. They held back their tears and responded. However, they were stunned when they heard Xiao Chen's last sentence. What's wrong? Don't you want to go to the ancient sacred sect with me? Xiao Chen's words echoed in the four women's ears. They were stunned and didn't react for a moment. After learning that Xiao Chen was going to the ancient sacred sect, the four women had been depressed. They wanted to be by Xiao Chen's side, but they knew that if they made such a request to Xiao Chen, they would be too willful. After all, Xiao Chen had just arrived at the ancient sacred sect, and he hadn't even established himself yet. How could he bring them along? Knowing that they couldn't be willful, the four women had been suppressing the sadness in their hearts. Now that they heard this, could it be that the young master planned to bring them to the ancient sacred sect from the beginning? The four women's imaginations ran wild, and the truth was that Xiao Chen did not invite Fei Mei and the others to the banquet at the Cool Breeze in today. The reason was that Xiao Chen had planned to take the four women to the ancient sacred sect. In Xiao Chen's heart, Fei Mei and the others were different from Wang Zong and the others. Wang Zong and the others were friends, while Fei Mei and the others were more like family. Unlike his feelings for Qin Shiru, Bai Hua Fairy, and Gu Lingyao, Xiao Chen treated Fei Mei and the others as his family. They were more like his younger sisters. Therefore, from the very beginning, Xiao Chen had never thought of abandoning Fei Mei and the other three girls. With a faint smile on his face, Xiao Chen asked with a teasing smile, "What? You don't want to go to the ancient sacred sect with me?" "Yes, we want to go with young master." When they heard Xiao Chen's question, the four girls replied in unison. However, as soon as they finished speaking, the four girls lowered their heads and blushed, not daring to look at Xiao Chen. Seeing that the four girls were so shy, Xiao Chen was amused. He stood up and laughed. "If you want to wait for me in Tianfeng Xingzong, I will tell the holy sage. After I arrange everything in the ancient holy sect, I will come to Tianfeng Xingzong to pick you up." With that, Xiao Chen strode out of the hall. Looking at Xiao Chen's back as he left, the four girls cautiously raised their heads after a while. There was still a hint of redness on their cheeks. Then, Green Bamboo, who had the most lively personality, was the first to dance with joy. "That's great. I knew that young master would not abandon us." "You still say that? I wonder who was the one who cried the most and kept saying that young master did not want you anymore." The four girls smiled at Lu Zhu's cheers. "Fei, I don't want to talk to you anymore, Sister Si Zhu." Lu Zhu blushed when she heard Si Zhu's teasing. Xiao Chen's decision undoubtedly made the four girls very happy. However, they did not know that not only them, but also Qing Yao, Qing Luo, and Xiao Chen had the same thoughts. They liked the six maidservants very much, so Xiao Chen selfishly wanted them to stay by his side. Of course, this was not because Xiao Chen liked the six girls, but because Xiao Chen liked the feeling of being served by the six girls. Since everyone liked to be together, why should they be separated? Moreover, as the people closest to him, Xiao Chen naturally hoped that the maidservants by his side could be completely trusted. There was no need to keep switching. Qing Yao, Qing Luo, Fei Mei, and Lan, Lu Zhu, and Si Zhu, These 6 ladies were very good. They were loyal and devoted, and they were nimble and skillful in doing things. Moreover, everyone had feelings for each other. Why not let these 6 ladies be in charge of serving him? This was Xiao Chen's truest thought. Of course, perhaps no one knew that many years later, the 6 maidservants by Xiao Chen's side would become the 6 sword attendants that shocked the world. They became existences that countless cultivators feared as maidservants. Without any worries, Fei Mei and the other girls were naturally no longer unhappy. The next morning, the 4 girls happily helped Xiao Chen wake up and wash up. Xiao Chen put on his clothes with the help of the 4 girls. Then he smiled at the 4 girls and said, "Wait for me at Tianfeng Shengzong. I'll come and fetch you after you've settled down." "Yes, young master, you have to take care of yourself." Fei Mei and the other girls smiled sweetly when they heard Xiao Chen's words. After bidding farewell to the 4 girls, Xiao Chen was led by He Feng all the way to the peak of the Tianfeng Sacred Mountain, which was the residence of the Tianfeng Saint. There, Xiao Chen saw the Tianfeng Saint and the Kuangli Saint. Xiao Chen bowed and called out, "Disciple Xiao Chen greets the sacred masters." There's no need to be so polite. Is everything ready?" The Kuangli Saint laughed heartily when he heard Xiao Chen's words. The 2 sacred masters did not mention yesterday's matter. Clearly, yesterday's matter was not worth mentioning in their eyes. Right now, they were most concerned about whether Xiao Chen could become the quasi-holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Everything had been taken care of, and they could leave at any time. However, Xiao Chen still told the Tianfeng Saint and the Kuangli Saint that he was going to bring the 4 girls to the ancient sacred sect. Of course, the 4 girls would still enter the ancient sacred sect as Xiao Chen's maids. The Tianfeng Saint and the Kuangli Saint naturally did not reject this. With Xiao Chen's talent, even if he could not become the quasi-holy son, he would definitely be a direct disciple. A direct disciple bringing 4 maids to the ancient sacred sect was not a big deal. After all, they were not considered disciples of the ancient sacred sect. It was not a big deal at all. Afterward, under the lead of the Kuangli Saint and the Tianfeng Saint, the 3 of them went to the ancient sacred sect through the teleportation array. He did not expect that even the Tianfeng Saint would personally make a trip to the ancient sacred sect. At the peak of the Tianfeng Sacred Mountain, there was a special teleportation array that connected to the ancient sacred sect. It was usually not opened. After a moment of dizziness, Xiao Chen regained his senses. The 3 of them were already outside a teleportation array of the ancient sacred sect. Looking at the unfamiliar environment, the Kuangli Saint laughed heartily. His laughter was filled with pride. "How is it, kid? This is the ancient sacred sect. It is also the place where all the experts of the ancient sacred state gather. I think this should be the place that suits you." Ha! Hearing Saint Kuangli's words, Xiao Chen could not help but feel excited. He murmured softly, "A place where experts gather? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 726. This was the first time Xiao Chen had come to the ancient sacred sect. His heart was filled with a myriad of emotions. It had been a long time since he first arrived at the Tiana continent. Now, Xiao Chen finally arrived at the ancient sacred sect, one of the 4 major sects that dominated the Tiana continent. Although Tianfeng Shengzong was also known as a sacred sect, Tianfeng Shengzong paled in comparison to the ancient sacred sect. Strictly speaking, there was only one sacred sect in the entire ancient sacred state, and that was the ancient sacred sect. This was because the Tianfeng Saint and the others were all saints that belonged to the ancient sacred sect. As the true center of the ancient sacred state, where experts from all over gathered, the ancient sacred sect controlled everything in the ancient sacred state. Walking out of the teleportation array, Xiao Chen discovered that the entire ancient sacred sect was built on an endless plain. However, the buildings of the ancient sacred sect were actually floating in mid-air. An entire cluster of buildings that stretched for an unknown number of miles floated in mid-air. From afar, it looked like a fairyland. Within the sect, disciples of the ancient sacred sect could be seen flying in the air between the various buildings. Imagine a sect that was built in midair. In order to survive in the ancient sacred sect, one had to be at least in the Tao querying realm. This was because one had to be able to fly. Otherwise, one wouldn't even be able to leave the ancient sacred sect. In the ancient sacred sect, it was impossible for martial artists below the Tao querying realm to survive. Of course, as the ruler of the ancient sacred state, the ancient sacred sect wouldn't accept martial artists below the Tao querying realm. As though he was walking through a fairyland, Xiao Chun arrived at the core of the ancient sacred sect under the lead of the Kuang-Li Saint and the Tianfeng Saint. This was also where the sacred hall of the ancient sacred sect was located. As the name suggested, the sacred hall was the place where the saints of the ancient sacred sect discussed matters. Of course, most of the time, the sacred hall was just a symbol. This was because the saints rarely gathered together. Once they did, it meant that something big was about to happen. It was a magnificent sacred hall. Xiao Chun thought that he had seen many magnificent palaces before, such as the main hall of Tianfeng Xingzong, and so on. However, after seeing the sacred hall of the ancient sacred sect with his own eyes, Xiao Chun realized that the magnificent palaces that he had seen before were like thatched huts compared to the sacred hall. The two palaces weren't on the same level at all. If Xiao Chun wanted to become the chosen son of the ancient sacred sect, he naturally needed to go through a series of assessments. Furthermore, the appointment of the chosen son and the chosen son required the approval of all the saints of the ancient sacred sect before it could take effect. Now, the first step was naturally to test Xiao Chun's Haoyin Gate. Currently, there were only a total of 4 saints in the ancient sacred sect, and there were only 4 prospective saints. Of course, being a prospective saint didn't mean that they would definitely become a saint. It only meant that they had the possibility of becoming a saint. As for whether they could actually become one was still uncertain. After all, being a saint wasn't just a matter of battle prowess. It was also very strict about age. If they failed to become a saint before reaching the age of a certain age, they would be demoted to personal disciples. As a result, becoming a prospective saint didn't mean that they could become a saint. These were 2 different matters. Moreover, based on past experience, there might not even be a single saint out of 10 prospective saints. "Let's go in," the Tianfeng Saint said softly to Xiao Chun. With that, the Tianfeng Saint and the Kuang-Li Saint entered the sacred hall first. The sacred hall was magnificent and solemn. As soon as he entered, Xiao Chun saw numerous statues standing on both sides of the passageway. The passageway led to the depths of the sacred hall. There were a total of several dozen statues, representing all the saints that had appeared since the ancient sacred sect's founding. Among them, Xiao Chun saw the Tianfeng Saint, the Kuang-Li Saint, and the Qingju Saint. Xiao Chun even saw the statues of the 6 quasi-saints in the depths of the sacred hall. The 6 quasi-saints were the founding masters of the ancient sacred sect. They were also the ones who had founded the ancient sacred sect. He went all the way to the main hall at the core of the holy sanctum. After passing through the long corridor, known as the Corridor of the Saints, Xiao Chun saw a circular hall before him. The ceiling of the hall was very high, and the entire hall was built with pieces of spiritual stones. Using spiritual stones to build a building was definitely unprecedented. At the same time, because of the spiritual stones, the entire hall seemed like the starry sky, giving off an extremely profound feeling. Within the extremely spacious hall, there were 16 prayer mats arranged in a semicircle. The 16 prayer mats represented the 16 saints that the ancient sacred sect currently possessed. After bringing Xiao Chun into the hall, a handsome young man's figure gradually appeared on one of the prayer mats. It was the Qingju Saint. The Qingju Saint smiled at the Kuang-Li Saint and the Tianfeng Saint. "You can begin." According to the rules, 3 saints had to be present at the same time to confirm the birth of the chosen saint. Now, there were 3 saints present at the same time, which was in accordance with the rules of the ancient sacred sect. Hearing Saint Qingjue's words, Saint Kuang-Li and Saint Tianfeng also came to their own futons and sat down cross-legged. Under the gaze of the three saints, Xiao Chun was about to demonstrate his Tao. Kid, this is the ancient path stone tablet. Inject your spiritual energy into it, and the stone tablet will manifest your Tao gate. Go on, Saint Qingju said with a smile as he threw out a huge stone tablet that was more than 10 meters tall from his storage ring. With that, Xiao Chun slowly walked over to the steel. He slowly extended his right hand and gently pressed it against the steel. It was cold to the touch. Afterwards, as Xiao Chun poured his spiritual energy into it, the steel began to emit a faint white light. Because of the white light, the steel seemed to become a gate of Tao. This gate of Tao was the gate of Tao within Xiao Chun's body. There were 8 corners at the top. The three saints' expressions did not change at all when they saw the changes to the steel. After all, they already knew that Xiao Chun's gate of Tao was an octagonal gate of Tao. The only reason they had to test it again was because of the rules of the ancient sacred sect. Moreover, the process of the test had to be recorded through talismans for the other saints to watch. After all, the chosen saint's appointment required the approval of all the saints. It is indeed an octagonal gate of Tao. Not bad. Since that's the case, let's arrange for this kid to take the test. The Qingju saint nodded slightly. After confirming the gate of Tao, Xiao Chun was arranged to rest in a small courtyard. Because he had not completed the test, strictly speaking, Xiao Chun was not a disciple of the ancient sacred sect. This was only Xiao Chun's temporary residence. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 7:27. Because it was only a temporary residence, Xiao Chun didn't have any requests. However, the Tianfeng saint actually came to visit that night, which surprised Xiao Chun. The Tianfeng saint naturally had something to tell Xiao Chun. The two of them took their seats in the room. The Tianfeng saint sat on the main seat and looked at Xiao Chun with admiration in his eyes. Xiao Chun, the time for your assessment has been set. It will begin tomorrow. Tomorrow would be the day of the candidate saint's assessment. Xiao Chun did not mind and nodded in response. Seeing this, Tianfeng saint also smiled. You don't have to worry too much about the prospective saint's assessment. Originally, I intended to let you take the assessment after 2 years. However, Quangli said that it would be helpful for you to take the assessment first. Thinking about it, it makes sense. Therefore, you don't have to feel too pressured during this assessment. Just take it as accumulating experience and preparing for the next assessment. After all, you're still young, so there's no need to be too anxious. The Tianfeng saint and the others didn't have high hopes for Xiao Chun's assessment this time. The most important reason was that Xiao Chun was too young and his cultivation was too low. Under normal circumstances, the minimum cultivation needed to be at the great perfection of the Tao Gate realm to take part in the assessment. Some prospective saints were even at the Tao transformation realm when they took part in the assessment. Moreover, the requirements for the prospective saint and the saint were the same. As long as they weren't over 100 years old, they could take part in the assessment. Therefore, the Tianfeng saint said that Xiao Chun was too young. It was also because Xiao Chun was too young and his cultivation was too low that the Tianfeng saint didn't have high hopes for Xiao Chun. Of course, with Xiao Chun's current age and talent, there was no problem at all for him to become the candidate's son. Even if there were no accidents, there would be no problem for him to become the son. However, what Xiao Chun needed now was time to settle down. It was as if he had already determined that Xiao Chun would fail this time. Even the Tianfeng saint had already arranged everything for Xiao Chun. After tomorrow's assessment, Xiao Chun would enter the ancient saint sect and become a pro-disciple first. 2 years later, he would take the assessment of the candidate saint. These 2 years would give Xiao Chun enough time. Upon hearing the Tianfeng saint's words, Xiao Chun muttered to himself, accumulating experience? The Tianfeng saint and the others didn't think highly of him, but in Xiao Chun's opinion, he didn't have that much time to waste. Therefore, this time, Xiao Chun wasn't planning on accumulating experience. Instead, he wanted to do his best and pass the test in one go. Of course, Xiao Chun didn't say these thoughts out loud. Nodding, Xiao Chun said, I will work hard. Okay, then rest early. I will come and pick you up tomorrow. Hearing this, the Tianfeng saint nodded and left. After the Tianfeng saint left, Xiao Chun asked Xiao Sheng gloomily, Old ancestor, do you think I can pass the assessment? The Tianfeng saint and the others don't think highly of me. Kid, what's wrong? Don't you have confidence? Logically speaking, with your cultivation, it's naturally impossible for you to pass the assessment. However, you have the temper battle body, and I am here. This assessment is nothing. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Sheng replied with a smile. Although there was no specific cultivation level requirement for the candidate to pass the assessment, the lowest cultivation level of anyone who passed the assessment was at the great fulfillment of the Dao Gate realm. Xiao Chan was only at the entry level of the Dao Gate realm, so the success rate was almost zero. However, Xiao Chun had the tempered battle body and Xiao Chen's existence. These 2 points could make up for Xiao Chen's lack of cultivation to a certain extent. Moreover, from Xiao Sheng's tone, it seemed like passing the assessment wasn't difficult at all. With Xiao Sheng's words, Xiao Chun was somewhat confident. In fact, Xiao Chun wasn't unaware that it wasn't the best time for him to participate in the assessment. However, Xiao Chun had his own reasons. Rather than follow the Tianfeng saint's advice and train as a direct disciple for 2 years, he might as well do his best to obtain the position of the saint. In any case, Xiao Chun would need time to improve himself. How could the treatment of a direct disciple compare to that of a saint? Rather than wasting 2 years, Xiao Chun might as well take 1 step at a time. In this way, he could enjoy the treatment of a saint for 2 more years, which would naturally be more beneficial to his cultivation. It was precisely because of this idea that Xiao Chun was so desperate. Xiao Chun cultivated quietly for a night in his residence. The next morning, the Tianfeng saint came to pick him up personally. At the same time, the news that someone was going to take the test of the candidate had somehow spread among the disciples of the ancient saint sect. There is no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world, especially when it came to something as important as the assessment. Therefore, the news that someone was going to participate in the assessment had already spread, and many disciples paid close attention to it. In a quaint courtyard in the ancient sacred sect, this courtyard was definitely one of the most famous places in the ancient sacred sect. Not only was the environment beautiful, but it was also the residence of one of the 4 saints of the ancient sacred sect, Chun Yu. Chun Yu was sitting cross-legged beside a stream in the courtyard. There was a stream running through the courtyard, and Chun Yu was holding a fishing rod and fishing idly by the stream. Just as Chun Yu was yawning out of boredom, Isu had appeared behind him out of nowhere. Her face was still expressionless as she spoke. Saint, I heard that someone is going to challenge the assessment today. Upon hearing Isu's words, Chun Yu said lazily, I already knew about this. That kid, Xiao Chun, is really not simple. How long has it been since we last met? I didn't expect that kid to have already broken through to the Dao Gate realm. Chun Yu had known about this for a long time. Not only that, but he also knew that the challenger was Xiao Chun. It wasn't just Chun Yu. In the other 3 residences of the saints of the ancient sacred sect, the other 3 saints were also discussing Xiao Chun. Hu Fei, who had met Xiao Chun once before, was currently cultivating his spear arts in the courtyard. This guy was a cultivation maniac, and he was cultivating almost all the time. After completing his set of spear arts, Hu Fei put away his spear and looked towards the location of the assessment. His eyes flickered with an inexplicable light. Xiao Chun, it seems that I really underestimated you last time. Xiao Chun didn't know that the entire ancient sacred sect was paying attention to him. Following the Tianfeng saint, Xiao Chun arrived at the location of the assessment. It was located in an independent space deep within the ancient sacred sect's sacred palace. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.